Dr. James ne is a tashajanedo otonen shinigi a kintlichinin shneto ashin a bashichindo na kre. Aisi na kregi a dashiche. Aro tratnezahni a dashinalado akro todneje do nasha todneje do shada article kayapij hodlo a na neje holia akro nasha. Good morning, everybody. My name is James Nez. I am a doctor of behavioral health. I got my degree from Arizona State University way back in 2014. Wow. I have other degrees. I'm also a local practitioner of law here on the Navajo Nation. So I just want to introduce myself before we get started, and as other participants roll in. We're going to have a presentation on business development here on Navajo Nation. I'm going to be giving the presentation. I got 4 sections I like to cover, and I'm not going to waste your time. I'm just going to give you the meat of everything, and then some experience. I'm also a business person here on Navajo Nation. I've had business successes, business failures. I'll talk about a few of them throughout the presentation. What I learned, things that you can learn from what I've been through, and then you can apply it. Whatever I've been in, both selling goods and services. So I've had some experience in both for the past 23 years now. So, and then prior to that, assisting my stepfather in his business also. So I learned a lot also during my high school years. Kristen, go ahead and give just a quick introduction since you're going to be participating as a presenter also.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Hi, I'm Kristen Cooper, and I work with Brian Cole from Building Communities. Some of the names on here look familiar, so welcome, and welcome to everyone. And I will be helping walk through kind of a step-by-step of a business plan. Again, more overview, but giving some examples and some ideas of how to shape your plan moving forward. So thanks for the opportunity to share with you today.
All right, thank you, Kristen. So there's a manual that we developed for this particular project. And those of you that want a jump drive version of it, you can, I don't know if we have the comments enabled, but go ahead and send us, either you can comment us and send us your address, or you can email me, nahata, nahata.foundation@yahoo.com, and then we'll mail you a jump drive with all of the contents of the manual in there. You can also download a PDF version on our website, www.nahata.org. Click on the Regional Business Development page, and then click on that arrow. There's like an arrow facing right. Click on that arrow, and it'll take you right to the PDF. So you can actually do that now if you want to follow along. So the first thing I want to cover, and you can put up the first page, Kristen. So the first thing I want to cover is Navajo Nation. We're a unique entity. We have 110 chapters that make up the entire Navajo Nation, and we're also further divided into agencies. So each of the 110 chapters has a different geographical location, which will determine its economic viability. You have some of the larger chapters that are situated in a place where they can take advantage of, like flow through traffic. For example, Kayenta, we have a road 163 going to Monument Valley. And so you get a lot of tourist traffic through here. You have a major thoroughfare going from east to west, going to New Mexico into Arizona. And so you get a lot of travelers that come through here. And Kayenta takes advantage of that. And we do have a township that was incorporated to collect taxes, sales taxes, and other types of tax revenues. And so we're in a position where we have people that are coming through constantly and so we're in a better situation to make money. Um, but there's some chapters that are really far off the major thoroughfares that they're not situated to make any sort of money off of the traffic that flows through their community. So they have to think up creative ways of sustaining their community and bringing business in. And a lot of smaller chapters, they do rely on tourism. I know some people have gotten creative and uh, they've created tour companies that take tourists out to their areas. Um, there's a lot of different things that they can do, but there's a capital situation here on the reservation. There's no working capital coming in to help businesses. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So Navajo Nation, we're a sovereign. Basically, a sovereign means that um, we are a nation. However, under federal Indian law, we are a nation within a nation, so we're a sovereign dependent. That's our status as a Navajo Nation. So we rely on the federal government and we rely on certain state sources of revenue. And when we rely on those two governments for economic development and for just general sustainability here on the Navajo Nation, we're not, in a sense, a sovereign that has a complete economic structure in place. So, with that said, a sovereign has a lot of ability and a lot of authority. And I wanted to read a small section, and I thought this was a really interesting thing that Mr. Wilkins stated. And I'll show you this book. It's the Navajo Political Experience. I used to teach for Diné College, and I used to use this book. But I wanted to read this section because it's very important. It says, Mr. Wilkins makes a statement. It says, until the fundamental rights and responsibilities of tribal nations are separate, if linked political bodies are clarified by the tribes themselves and then by the state and federal government, there can be no concrete steps towards important areas of economic revitalization, self-determination, and ultimately sovereignty. So it means that even though we're in the modern day and age, we're in 2023, we're in the federal Indian policy is that we are in a state of tribal self-determination and economic development. We still don't know the parameters that we're operating by. And so when that becomes the situation, we don't know how to develop economically as a tribe, but there are opportunities for the individual Navajo entrepreneur to start businesses and to thrive and to contribute to that greater tribal economy. And so the flexibility of being a sovereign is one power that the Navajo Nation should highlight. We should understand that sovereignty means that we have the ability to implement free enterprise. We have the ability to create programs that would assist the entrepreneurs. And there are programs that are available out there. There are microloans, there are industrial loans, but those also require capital. When I started, I had a pizzeria back in 2006 here in Kayenta, and I applied for a microloan through the Navajo Nation, and they gave me a $10,000 microloan. But when I applied for it, their question to me was, what type of capital or what type of collateral can you give us in case you default on this loan? And at the time, I was in my early 20s, and I didn't have anything. I didn't own a vehicle. I was paying on a vehicle. I didn't own livestock. I didn't own any sort of tangible property that could be liquidated in order to pay off the remainder of the loan, even if it was just a $10,000 loan. What I did do was I did an escrow, which means I took 10% of the loan and I put it in a bank account and I gave the control of that bank account over to the Navajo Nation. Um, Unfortunately, my pizzeria didn't last more than 2 years. There were certain things that came into play. I'll talk about that later. But I did end up defaulting on the loan. When I did start my second business, the Navajo Nation said, hey, you owe us money still. So if we grant you the authority to conduct business, you must pay us back the money that you still owe us, which I ended up doing. which is an interesting situation because the Navajo Nation, under Navajo law, there's really two areas where they can enforce collection on you. One is if you owe child support to somebody, they can enforce collection. They can put court orders in place where they take your payroll check before you even get your money. They garnish your wages. They put wage assignments on you. And the other one is if you owe money to them for if you borrowed anywhere, they can put liens on property and so forth. Anything else? Not so much. The Navajo Nation, real quick, I want to touch on these areas. The Navajo tribe itself had an economy that was sustaining. This is prior to the contact with other nations, other nations such as European nations. There's the Spaniards that came, of course, they're European nations also. But any contact with foreigners, there was an economy that existed on Navajo, and it was a trade economy. A lot of the goods and services were done by trade. So there was a huge trade route from Central America to the Southwest, from East Coast to West Coast, all the way up into Canada. And so we did a lot of bartering between tribes for different goods. And the anthropologists have noticed that you can find different products made by certain tribes hundreds of miles away from where they originated, thousands of miles away from where they originated. So it shows that there was some sort of trade route involved. When other nations came to North America, the same situation began. There was a trade system that began. So commerce on Navajo was very strong prior to contact with any other foreign nations. And that economy was disrupted because these other nations had different business models. The business models that other nations had did not include just trade, but also payment through other means, whether it be through money. There was a shift in how the economy worked. It was no longer the traditional trade and bartering system. So that when the other nations came, we started to conduct business on their terms. We started to make contracts on their terms. Before that, our trade system didn't involve a lot of the formalities that it does today. When you get into contract law, there's all sorts of different things involved in establishing a contract. So you have to be very careful when you do try to establish contracts, especially here on Navajo. Navajo Nation recognizes oral agreements because that was how things were done back in our grandparents' days. There was oral agreements that were made. There was handshake deals that were made, and these were honored through our kes system. How we made trade and commerce with each other. We did it through that kes system. It's not as strong as it was back in our grandparents' days as it is today. Today, it's loosely used, but it's still enforceable. When we talk about commerce here on Navajo, today we have a lot of regulations. We have a lot of policies in place, and we'll get to that. If you look in the manual, we included the bulk of all the policies, the bulk of all the forms that are required to start businesses here on Navajo. So you can flip through that, and if you have questions, I can answer them at the end of the presentation. So Navajo society influences commerce here. What do Navajos need and what do Navajos want? One of the biggest industries here, I don't know if you call it an industry, but it's more of a small business practice. Okay, so food is one of the things here on Navajo, right? If you go to the online yard sales, which Navajos have taken advantage of to promote their business and their sale of goods and services, they'll sell a lot of food. So you get a lot of food sales. A lot of people fundraise through that means. So Navajos created a different type of economy with small businesses. So you get off reservation, they'll call them mom and pop shops, right? But on the reservation, you get something that's more mobile. And that's because a lot of times Navajos do not have the capital to start businesses, brick and mortar businesses. They cannot set up a building. They cannot establish a building such as they do off reservation. So a lot of their business is mobile. So that's one thing that the Navajos have going on for their business practices. A lot of things are mobile, right? Jewelry sales are mobile. We don't have a Navajo arts and crafts style business set up by several Navajos. We don't have a lot of art galleries here, like in Santa Fe or out in Scottsdale. All of our sales are mobile. And so we move with where people are going to be buying. Same way with food, we move where the customers are. So a lot of it is mobile. Services are similar to that. So we don't have a lot of buildings. So if you go into Kayenta or if you go to Tuba or Chinle, there's not a lot of buildings set up where there's an actual physical location for the buildings. And this is often an issue when we try to apply for grants, right, Kristen? It's hard to show where physical locations are here on Navajo because of the mobility of the businesses and because we lack physical street addresses. Um, so Navajos take advantage of the situation here. So we also go and we follow the crowds, right? And that's part of our traditional trade methodology of business. We go where the people are and we trade and we sell where those people, where those customers are at. So it's one of the things that are more traditional in Navajo ways. Let's go to the second page, the chapter, establishing a business on the Navajo Nation. So establishing a business on the Navajo Nation is probably one of the most difficult tasks you could do. It's different from off the reservation. Off the reservation, you have plazas that are available. You can rent out small facilities. The Navajo Nation understood that back in the 80s, and so they set up these plazas, right? We have Kayenta Tiende shopping center. We have Navajo Shopping Center that's involved, but they have a limited amount of space, right? You can only fit about 7 businesses in our plaza here in Kayenta. And so the thing that you have to try to understand is that, I guess the first key thing is you must have working capital in order to start a business. What is working capital? Working capital is money that you have available to start your business. Where does that money come from? It could come from so many different places. It can come from your personal savings, which is most commonly used by Navajos. We save up. We start a business, right? I've seen people like at the flea markets, they start out selling used tires. They save up enough money and they buy a spin balance machine and they add to their service. After they buy a spin balance machine, they buy a different floor jacks, so that way they can hoist up vehicles rather than using the small jacks. So they start building their business like that through their own savings and through their own income, their own revenues through their business. Off the reservation, a lot of times you can go into a bank and you can ask for a business loan, and they'll still ask you for collateral and things that can back the loan, but you're more likely to get a business loan off the reservation based on what your business is. Is your business in high demand? Is there a likeliness that your business is going to be successful? What type of training do you have that will also contribute to the success of your business? And a lot of people don't have the training here. They don't have the formal education. They have an idea and they have an idea of how to start the business, but they just don't have the formal training. And so off the reservation, they will often give you a business loan based on those different factors. And you take that loan and that's your working capital. If you're starting a restaurant, that loan will buy your stoves, will buy your building, will rent your building. It will buy all your insurance. It will pay for your workers for the first, let's say, 5 years. So for the first 5 years, your job is to use that working capital to make that business successful. On the Navajo Nation, there's hardly any capital that you can get in order to start your business. The good thing about capital is Let's say you take out $100,000 loan for sustaining your business for the next 3 years, and that pays for all the things: rent, your workers, your goods, your ingredients, everything. And you're going to pay that money back to whoever gave it to you, little by little. So they'll give you that loan for 100,000 for 10 years, and you'll be paying monthly for the next 10 years. The good thing about that is you don't hit the ground running when you start your business. You have that breathing room to focus on making your business successful. On Navajo, you don't get that. You're basically working using your own savings, maybe some loans from your mother-in-law, right, or your father-in-law, or somebody that has money, and they'll give you a loan, and you're working to pay them, but at the same time, you're also struggling in order to find more capital to keep that business going. So when you don't have that capital, it's very difficult to function as a business, and we'll get into more of that later. But right now, discovering your business niche is the first thing that you would need to do. What product or what service are you going to be selling? Are you going to be selling a product, jewelry, food? Are you going to be selling a service, maybe a cleaning service, or maybe a consulting service? What are you going to be doing, and how does that fit into the local economy? Now, let me go back to my pizzeria days. So when I started my pizzeria, we said, let's go ahead and start a pizzeria using a stone slab oven. You know those Blodgett ovens where the door comes down and there's like a flat stone in there. You put the pizza in there, you cook it on the stone, and the bottom comes out nice and crispy. And it's just New York style pizza is what we called it. But we said, let's do specialty pizzas. Let's put specialty toppings on there. You know what comes with specialty anything? The cost of it. So we didn't look at the local economy. We said, okay, these are going to be our customers: teachers, doctors, IHS staff members, people that have the money, right? Well, I'll tell you what, those people can only eat so many pizzas, so many days of the week. And so you're left with the local population. So if you look at the local population, their per capita income ranges between $10,000 to $20,000 a year per family. That's not a lot of money to be buying extra stuff, right? They're going to be using that money to buy food for their family, clothes, rent, vehicle payments, all of those things, and that 20K is gone. And they don't have that extra money to be spending on specialty pizzas, right? So when thinking on our feet, we said, okay, let's scrap the specialty pizzas. That's not working. Let's go with just the common toppings. Again, those toppings are very expensive, right? Cheese is very expensive. That was like our biggest expense. Employees are expensive. And so we had it separated into three areas: our rent, our employees, and our overhead. So those are where all the money went to. Basically, a third of our revenues went to those areas. And so when we got into that specialty pizza business, it's not something that is feasible in a low income community. Okay, so you have to understand the people that you're going to be serving. Can they afford something like this? When we did our pizzeria, at the end of it, when we closed up shop, these are the three things that we walked away with. People in low income communities want three things. They want fast service, they want cheap service, and they want a lot of it, right? So they want their pizza in less than 5 minutes. They want their pizza at $5 for a large, and they want toppings galore, right? That's what they want. So when we came out with New York style pizzas, I don't know if some of you have seen that. They're really flat and they're cut large. So when you hold it, it'll just go down. So often they'll fold the pizza and they'll eat it like that. I guess people, the only thing they know growing up is Pizza Edge, right? And Pizza Edge, their pizzas are pretty thick. They're really, well, there's a lot of bread on there. And so what did they say bread is? Bread is a poor man's food, right? So you can take bread and basically combine it with anything, dip it in the gravy, eat it with a topping on there. So, and I'm not making that up. This is just something that people call it. It's a poor man's food. So the more bread, the bread is probably the cheapest thing out of the entire pizza. The more bread you put in there, the more people are satisfied, and that's the mentality of the community that is lower in the economic on the economic totem pole. And so you have to really understand that. Is a thin crust New York style pizza gonna thrive here? Probably not. We learned that. Um, is small specialty toppings gonna fly? Probably not. So think about that. That's the three things that we learned. That's my, I call it my $100,000 lesson. Um, Fast, cheap, and a lot of it. And so if you did a cafeteria style food service, right, you can make a big giant tray of macaroni and cheese. That's not going to cost you a lot. If you can make a big giant pan of mashed potatoes, right, you put in the mashed potato flakes and you mix it up, and you can feed a lot of people for a lot less. And when people have that sight of all that food on their plate, their idea is, wow, this is worth it, right? Have you ever had people that come up to jewelry stands and they pick up a necklace without even knowing what the turquoise is, not even knowing what the beads are? They'll pick it up and they'll say, this is heavy, this is valuable. I'll tell you what, heavy is not a good indicator of the value of any sort of beads. You have to look at them. Is there veins of certain minerals in there? If you can tell if there's certain veins of certain minerals or quartz in there, if there's quartz in there, it could be Kingman turquoise, right? Those are valuable. If there's veins of copper in there, it could be a different type of turquoise that's not even from the United States. It could be from China. But their idea is, wow, this weighs a lot, so it must be valuable. And so people do that with food too. They'll carry their trays. This is a lot of food. It's worth my money, right? So you have to really look at those behaviors of the people that you're serving. So find your niche. What is needed in your community? Where are you going to be selling? What is the income level of the community you serve? If you don't know what the per capita income level is, go to the US Census website and search your community. And if you put your zip code in there, uh, it'll tell you what the per capita everything is in your community, how many males and how many females, what are the age range, and those are the things that you need to look at when you start selling stuff. For example, in Chinle, there's a huge population that's aging. So what did the community do there? They said, okay, we need to get ready in 2020, in the 2020s. There's going to be a big crowd that's going to be aging. They're going to need services here. So what did they do? They planned 20 years prior, and they set up a facility that takes care of the elderly. What's going to be needed in your community? And I've seen a lot of people really thrive by understanding their niche in the community. Their niche is where they can fit their goods and services in, where there's a need. So really do a needs assessment. And a needs assessment isn't as complicated as one might think. A needs assessment could be going to your relatives. Hey, what do you think would work here in wherever you're located? Go to your coworkers. Go to the flea market and talk to people. Um, Recently, I'm a board member here at the Kayenta Unified School District, and we have a real situation with our meals that we serve our kids. Our kids are not eating, so we don't get a lot of reimbursement. We just buy food and we waste it, and the state will not reimburse because kids are not punching their little ticket, and there's no numbers to show kids are eating. So we waste a lot and we don't get reimbursed. So I myself went out and I talked to the kids. I talked to some of my workers who are in high school, and I said, "What's working?" what do you like and what do you not like? And the guys were telling me, well, we didn't like how the salad has this chicken on there and it just tastes like fake chicken, and we just pick it out and we throw it away. And so I started to ask other people, what do you think about the chicken on the salad? And you know what? Everybody said, "Ugh, it tastes like it came out of a can. It has a weird taste to it." So we could be saving money by taking that chicken out. What do? We just pull the chicken out and we just eat the salad. So you just like the salad? Yes. Would you continue eating salad if it didn't have chicken on it? Yes. So we have a cost savings there. Um, Another kid said, I didn't like the ham. The ham tastes fake. It was real thin. Recently, they changed over to a different ham on their sandwiches. Man, it's good. All my buddies eat it. And so just going out and talking to people will really help you when you're trying to start a business. Go figure out what your community needs, because people will talk to you. If you go to a chapter meeting, what do you need here? Talk to people before the meeting happens. Talk to people during the meeting, after the meeting, and they'll tell you, and there'll be people up there that present too. We need this, right? And they'll give you good ideas. So find your niche. That's step one. The other thing is that if you need to know some sort of data, there are different places you can pull it from. The Navajo Nation, if you just search Navajo Nation census or Navajo Nation data, it'll pull up all sorts of different information. Myself, when I was doing my doctoral degree, I was trying to find data and I was going to different sources, and they wouldn't give me any data. Come to find out, their data is published. It's available to the public. And so I drew from a lot of the information that was out there that they claimed they couldn't give me. There's a lot of information out there on numbers. Numbers are key to understanding the viability of your idea. And it's good that you have an idea. I've heard all sorts of ideas that I can just tell you right off, it's not going to work, or it's going to work. And some of the ideas, they're grand. Okay. One kid, one of my former workers, he's working down in Phoenix, and he says, I'm tired of Phoenix. I want to come back to the Navajo Nation, and I want to start a business. I said, okay, what kind of business do you want to start? Because I want to start a mechanic shop. And I said, wow, that's a lot of overhead and that's a lot of startup expenses. And he didn't understand that. So I explained it to him. And I said, start out small. If you can get a shop going on the Navajo Nation, start out maybe with oil changes, start out with maybe tire rotations, and then get into bigger mechanic works. Maybe start after you get enough money, revenues going, and a reputation on the Navajo Nation. You can start maybe engine work or engine diagnostics and things like that. So take it step by step. There's no idea that's crazy. Don't think that your idea is stupid or crazy or not going to work. You you can make it work if you try. But some of them, I'll tell you, they're just too grand. And I'll tell you, um, if you can scale it down, you can make it work. But if it's too far out there, you're probably gonna fail right at the get-go. So make sure that you're reasonable, and make sure that your product and your service is something that you can take steps towards. Don't try to create the city in one, and what did they say? Rome wasn't created in one day, right? Don't try to do that in one day. Take steps towards it. So create phases for your business by understanding the numbers. Will income support it? Is it needed? And I told him, yeah, we need oil shops. We need um, small services. We do need those things. And I said, if you can get on with some of these places, like for fleet management, just oil changes, all you do is fleet management. There's money right there. So he was just like, writing all these ideas down and says, okay, I'm going to try this. And so understanding your data is one of the best things that you can do. Understanding your people, just like Mr. Wilkins said, there's no concrete steps towards economic development here on the Navajo Nation unless we know our authorities and our community. And really, nobody's taking steps towards that. Really, It's the small businesses that are starting to realize that, but not at the tribal level. So we need to understand what we can and cannot do. A good example is the Navajo Nation, when they started the casinos, they said, we want to offer alcoholic beverages. And what did they do? The Navajo Nation, the great almighty Navajo sovereign nation, went to the state of Arizona and said, can we get a liquor license? And from what I've read, the state of Arizona says, I think you can basically issue yourself one of those, you know? And so the Navajo Nation says, oh, okay. So you need to understand your authority. You need to understand what you can and cannot do. And if it's something that's involved with sovereignty, especially those of you that are participating, that are part of the Navajo Nation, understand Navajo rules and policies and use them. Don't be afraid to go and test the waters with it. People will assist you along the way. So, with that said, hold on, let me turn my air conditioner off. I'm starting to get my back starting to get cold. So the Navajo Nation has, and this goes back to former Chief Justice Herb Yazzie, right? What did he say? We are a nation of laws. So with that said, the Navajo Nation has a business regulatory um, section, and it has business regulatory laws, statutes, and it has business regulatory common law. It has all sorts of regulations that you must go through. So the first thing when you decide, okay, I'm going to start this business, I want this business to be located here on the Navajo Nation. I understand the income. I understand the niche. I understand where I fit in and where my target customers are going to be. And I know where I'm going to be as far as like a brick and mortar or if I'm going to be mobile. Once you understand those things, you start to figure out, okay, I need to incorporate my business in some legal fashion. Now, there's different ways you can do that. One, you can be a sole proprietor, meaning that you can be the business. You and the business are one and the same. So let's say Valentina, she decides, I'm going to start a business. And she says, I don't really need a lot of employees. I'm just going to be consulting on how to build pizza ovens or something. So um, Valentina doesn't need a board of directors. She doesn't need um, people involved in the process. She can do all of it herself. And so your business can be a sole proprietor, meaning that your social security number is what you're going to use to file your Schedule C when you file your 1040 taxes. Okay. You're just going to file Schedule C and you're going to say, I'm a business. I'm one and the same. This is my income. These are my expenses. Your 1040 will reflect that. Okay. Now, let's say you're a bigger business. Let's say you're let me see. Let's say you're a nonprofit business. You can you can go and to the Navajo Nation and you can incorporate as a nonprofit. And you're going to have board members, okay? Because it's a public nonprofit. You're going to have to select board members. So you're going to have to go in your community and say, hey, everybody, we're starting this nonprofit. We need board members. This is our mission and this is our vision. These are our goals. This is our strategic plan. This is our intent. Maybe your intent is to save feral res cats, and your intention is to get grants to go out and catch them, vaccinate them, spay, neuter them, and control the feral cat population, right? And so your board of directors is going to basically oversee the operations. And so those are the people that you're going to answer to. So you can start that business, but you're going to need people involved. You're not going to be the only one to sign off on it. Sole proprietorship, you don't really need to incorporate. All you're going to do is say, hey, this is my business name. You're going to go to the state of Arizona and say, I want to register my business name. Arizona Corporation Commission has that information on their website. And you can register a business name. You can register a trade name. And that name will be exclusively yours until it expires and you have to renew it. And then you can operate. You can use your own social security number. You can also apply for your own EIN through the IRS. So you can go to irs.gov, go to the employer identification number, apply for one, select sole proprietorship, and it'll issue it to you right then and there that day. You can print out your EIN and you can use it to file taxes and so forth. If you're going to do a corporation, you're going to do the same EIN, but you're going to go to Navajo Nation and you're going to ask them, okay, I want to be an EIN, I want to be a business, a nonprofit business. So you fill out the forms, and in the manual that is on our website, and you can also request a jump drive of it. There's all the forms in there for each of the different types of businesses. So you fill out the form, you send it back, you pay a little fee, and they'll give you a certificate saying, Valentina's Pizza Oven Company is now a nonprofit organization. They're going to go save used and abused pizza ovens, stuff like that. And so then there's also corporations, just regular corporations that you can incorporate that will still need a board. There's also business corporations. These are LLCs, limited liability corporations. They're partnerships more than anything. So there's different types of businesses that you can start. I'll tell you from my experience, if you incorporate a nonprofit organization on the Navajo Nation, you cannot apply for federal grants using that document, that certificate they issue you. You need to go to the Arizona state or whatever state you're in, incorporate there, and then take your corporation and register it on the Navajo Nation. For my corporation, my nonprofit, I have a business and authority certificate to do business on the Navajo Nation. But my corporation is registered in the state of Arizona. The state of Arizona gives you a little registration name and a number, and when you apply for grants, you use that number, and then there's also information sharing between the two entities. So you have to have that state certification also. And I don't know when the Navajo Nation will start issuing the same types of certificates of incorporation as the states. But as of right now, you have to register within the state of Arizona. Other businesses, corporations, LLCs, those things, the Navajo Nation, it'll work for you. You can conduct business. And so when you figure out what type of business you're going to have, you need to go to the regulatory. So there's two, depending on what type of business. You can go to the Navajo Nation. I would recommend LLCs, corporations, those type of businesses, register there. Then you can also do vice versa. Take your business and register it as a foreign entity in your state that's operating on Navajo Nation. You can do it vice versa, either way. So figure out what type of business you're going to have. I would suggest if you have a small service business, go at it initially as a sole proprietor. If you have a goods business, go at it initially as a sole proprietor. As you add people that are going to be employed in your business, start to think about corporations after that. Because corporations, the thing about it is, and people often ask me this, why even corporate if I can operate as a sole proprietor? I said, well, when you're a sole proprietor, you and the business are one and the same, so liability is also the same. So let's say you owe money, your money and the business money are the same. But if you have a corporation, there's a thing called indemnification. So indemnification means that your assets and your money is separate from the business assets. So the business has its own EIN, which is like its own social security number. So it's like a person standing there. All the liability is often put on there, unless they go through a process. They can pierce corporate veils and whatnot. I'm not giving legal advice, but I'm just saying this is the general business practice. If you hide behind a corporation to do things that you're not supposed to do, they can pierce that corporate veil and they can say, okay, you're not operating as a corporation. You're going beyond what the statutes say, and now you and your business assets are one and the same. So be very careful with that. When you do create a corporation, you create a division between your stuff and their stuff, and the corporation stuff. And so that's one good thing. I did read a book I don't know if you ever seen it. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I read it just out of curiosity because it was really promoted. And in there, he talks about how he set up corporations and everything was owned by corporations for the sake of keeping the liability down. So his own personal assets aren't affected. It's all the corporation. So he made a comment. All of his stuff, his house, his vehicles, and don't quote me on this. And I'm not down talking the author, but he was basically putting out there that all of his stuff is owned by the corporations that he oversees and owns. So his vehicles, his house, everything, they're corporate houses, corporate cars, and he doesn't own them, the corporation does. So there's a division of that property and liability there. And he was saying the key to his success is having everything and owning nothing. And so I said, wow, that's a real tricky kind of thing, but I also see some legalities involved in that. And so I wouldn't recommend doing that, but just, know that make sure everything that your corporation has, owns, uses is based on the intention of the corporation. So if you're going to go catch cats, feral cats, make sure all your equipment, your cages and everything that you own for that purpose is geared towards your business intent. So you can't have a yacht out in the Florida Keys and claim that it's for the cats, right? They're going to get you for that. Okay. Um, Make sure that the things that your corporation owns is for the business. Just remember that as a key thing. Um, so funding your business. One of the biggest things on the Navajo Nation is trying to fund your business. People, like I said, will save money, use their retirement. For my pizzeria, I cashed in my 401k in my 20s of I figured, hey, I still got time to build it up, right? Time flies. But make sure that when you do look for funding, try your best to make sure that you can pay that money back. Okay. Make sure that you can, your business is going to be sustainable to where you have enough revenue to pay that back. Okay. Um, Getting into credit debt is probably one of the worst things you could do at the beginning, but it's probably something you have to do because um, you have to fund your initial startup somehow. And I've seen people, they apply for credit cards and they get like a $10,000 credit limit, $30,000 credit limit, and they basically use that to start their business and they pay that back little by little. Of course, you're going to be paying a lot of interest on it, but it's a way to fund your business. Okay. Um, Navajo Nation, it's very difficult to get any sort of working capital. Back in 2003, there was a big event that happened here in Kayenta about economic development, and Wells Fargo was there. And I have nothing against Wells Fargo, bless them, I use them, whatnot. But it was kind of a real weird situation because during that event that the township sponsored, Wells Fargo was there, and one of the commissioners at the time for the state for the Navajo County, he got up and asked a question. He goes, you're talking a lot about community development, economic development. He goes, I want to know how many business loans have you given out here in Kayenta? And they all looked at each other and they said two, and the crowd went whoa, right? And then they kind of got put on the spot. Why is that? And so Wells Fargo shared a laundry list of things that affect their ability to give loans here. And they were passing out these little stuff, plush, what do you call it, horses, and they were giving out little stuff to promote their business. But when you really look at it, they were not being community players. And so they said that we have to go by a standard set by the bank at a national level. It's not focused on a community level. So what banks focus on community needs and community development. A lot of times credit unions are those banks. You can go to a credit union, you can get loans, and you can basically say, okay, this is, you know, this is our intent, this is what we're going to do, and they'll be more willing to give you loans through their credit union. Of course, you're going to need some collateral. You're probably going to need an escrow, put some money aside to back that loan. But it's something that they'll do more than the national banks will do. So have you ever heard that? Some so credit union, a community bank credit, community credit union, then they got networks that they have going on. So you might have more success at a credit union to fund your business. So then you always dip into your personal savings. You can always borrow from family. You can get credit cards. You can go to banks. You can go to credit unions. But the best thing that you're going to do for your business is start out with what you have. For example, um, when I sold my pizzeria, there's a kid in our community that sells Chinese food. He came over to my going out of business sale, right? And he bought all my utensils and my mixing bowls. He bought my refrigerators and my deep fryer. And I asked him, "What are you going to use this for?" He goes, "I'm going to expand my Chinese food business." And he has a mobile business. He sets up at flea markets, fairs, events, and man, he's got a high demand for his food. It's a Korean fusion, he calls it, kind of a Chinese Asian food. Boy, is it good. I tell you what, it's really good. But he's got a good following, and he bought my equipment used. So he got a good deal on a lot of those things, and he made his making his business successful. If you can buy used things to sustain your business at the get-go, do that. It's going to cost you less. Don't be so inclined to make your business nice and flashy at the get-go. Okay? You're not impressing anybody, you're not doing anybody any good. Make sure that it's viable. The good thing about buying used stuff too, like a used mixing bowl, stainless steel, right? And some utensils and whatnot. Those are things that you can buy cheap, secondhand. It's still good. You can use it, but let's say your business doesn't make it. It's something that you can liquidate also and make money off of, just like I did. I was telling people, I said, I made more money for myself selling my business and liquidating it than I ever did operating it. And so you have to make sure that and going back to my stepdad's business, he started a tour company with one vehicle, and it was a really beat up vehicle that he had a guy that Wells fix up for him, put seats on there, and he started a tour business out in Monument Valley. He started from one vehicle to two vehicles to small minivans to Jeeps, and he created a really nice business. Of course, he had his downfall too, and we learned from that. And so the thing about, you know, some of these businesses, they'll go out and they'll say, we need 4 vehicles for the tour business, and we're going to finance all of them. They're all $80,000 each. Right away, you're 80,000 times 4 in debt. Okay, what if the business doesn't make it? What if it folds? Where's that money going to come from to pay off the financing on that debt? You're probably going to default on it, right? Okay. If you're a corporation, at least you got some protection. If you're a sole proprietor, guess what? That debt is yours. Okay. So be careful with that. Um, I cannot tell you a magic bullet to find financing. I wish I could. I wish I could say, hey, there's grants out there to start a business. I wish I could say the Navajo Nation will back you on your business adventure. But they won't, honestly. They will give you small microloans, and it's really sad to say and to know and to see that businesses that do get microloans and do start and do operate often close within the first year. And that's not only Navajo, it's nationwide. Small businesses that do not, most of small businesses do not last their first year. If you can get past 5 years, most likely you're going to succeed. Okay. I didn't get past 2 years on my pizzeria business. On my other businesses, we're well into almost 15 years. And so there's a difference between businesses. But let me tell you this, if one of your businesses fails, don't feel that you're a failure. Okay, I'm going to tell you more about this later, but don't feel that you're a failure. Try again. Okay, you're gonna learn something from your business failures. Every successful business person has business failures and business successes under their belt. Okay, I do a lot of work with the youth, and youth, they often make this excuse: I don't plan because it doesn't work out. I don't do because sometimes it may fail. Of course, that's what planning is. It's just a guide for you to follow to getting to where you need. You might have to go off the trail a little bit at some point, but you just reassess, right? I always look at it as your little, what do you call that? Your map, your Google map, right? Google map. I'm trying to look for Yehayaja over in Gallup. I need to buy mutton, right? And then it'll take you, turn right off this road, turn left, turn right. Then sometimes you're over there, you pass the turn off, and then it says, the next right, turn around and go on this road, and then it gives you another route to take, right? That's how it is. That's planning. You have to make sure that you have a guide to get to where you're going. But if you pass the turn, or if you make a mistake, something like that, reroute, do it again. Don't stop. Okay. If you're a real true entrepreneur, you will go the distance. Okay. And you will find that success. You will find that business that is meant to be successful for you. Okay. I'll tell you, I've had about, let's see, I had about 3 business failures, and in the more recent 3 business successes. And so, if you really want to do something like this, you will go to distance. Okay. What did they say about entrepreneurship? You trade in your 8 to 5 for a 5 to 8, right? You no longer have to be at work at 8 o'clock. You gotta be there at 5 o'clock, right? Kristen, she was up at 5 a.m. And so you leave also at 8 o'clock. You don't get to go home and do what you want to do. Your business is basically a good portion of your life. So make sure you're ready to endure that also. Registering with the US regulatory agencies. Okay. If you're going to register your business with the regulatory agency, you have to make sure you're good with the IRS. Okay. The Internal Revenue Service will monitor you, and um, it will make sure that you pay your taxes. Okay. So like for the nonprofit business here, when we get grants and we hire people, I have to take payroll taxes out. I have to match those payroll taxes. I think it's like 7.25% now. So I have to withhold that from my employees, and then I have to find money to match that also. Usually we build it into the grant. And then you have to make sure you're paying your payroll taxes. And that was one of the big things that people don't do out here on Navajo. They have employees, they withhold taxes, and they don't they don't pay their taxes. So, and it's difficult. Where do you go? Where do I go to pay my taxes? I know there's irs.gov, but isn't that money supposed to be deposited with the Social Security Administration? Okay, very difficult thing to do because there's all sorts of forms. Let me tell you what I do. I use a bit. I'm not promoting any business specific business. I'm just gonna tell you what I know from my practice. There's there's companies out there that will assist you in doing these things. Okay, so the company that I use is Tax Bandit. So taxbandit.com. If you go to their website, they'll tell you how to set up your business. It's like a portal. You put in all your workers' information, and you basically pay your taxes. It submits it to the IRS. The IRS takes the taxes and submits it to the Social Security Administration. And so, bandit, like a bandit, it has a little raccoon that's like a bandit, um, like a thief. I don't know why they use the bandit, but it's called Tax Bandit. Um, so Tax Bandit will help you pay your taxes through their services. Of course, you pay like $4 for their services, which is not bad, because most businesses will run around trying to look for somebody in Farmington or Gallup or Flagstaff to do their taxes for them, to do their payroll taxes for them, right? It's at the accountants. I always hear Navajo entrepreneurs say that, you can handle it yourself. Tax Bandit will help you. There's other services out there that can help you also, okay? Get to know it. They have little tutorials on there, very user friendly. So you can start up several businesses under it also and use their services to pay your taxes. And that's it. And at the end of the every quarter, you pay your payroll taxes. And at the end of the year, you just click on all these employees and they'll mail to them for you 1099s, what do they call it? W-2s, and they'll mail all of those to your workers for you. Very, very, very convenient. So make sure you're in the good with the IRS, right? Then there's to be in compliance also, you have to make sure that, let's say you're a nonprofit and you're trying to apply for grants through grants.gov or through the states or through other small granting organizations. If you are trying to get grants, you must be registered with SAM, right? SAM.gov. Oh, it's a pain to do that here on Navajo because we don't have street addresses, okay? Oftentimes I will have to use an address off the reservation to make sure my SAM registration is compliant. And they'll tell you to do that too. So what I did was I used a business address off the reservation to do that. Banks, financing, they'll often ask you for stuff like that too. So make sure you're compliant. Excuse me. Make sure you're compliant with those regulatory agencies. Oftentimes, we don't have to pay the state of Arizona taxes for employment. Excuse me, dry throat. So let's say you're employing all Navajos in your business here on Navajo. You're not liable to pay state taxes for those workers. But if you have a non-Indian on board, you have to go with the state of Arizona, get your tax certificate, and then make sure that you're paying payroll taxes to the state for that non-Indian employee. For the Navajos, we're exempt from paying state taxes, and they can always declare that also on their own personal 1040. So make sure if you need that state tax credentials, make sure you get it. But if you're employing all Navajos, you don't need it. You just pay your state. There's certain things you're going to pay. You're going to pay your Social Security, what they call FICA. Then you're going to pay your Medicare for your employees. The other thing is federal unemployment tax. So those are the three main ones that you're going to pay. The fourth one is your withholding. And not a lot of Navajos that work here can declare a withholding. They usually declare that they're exempt from withholding. So when you have your employees on board, have the process of getting their ID, getting a copy of their CIB, because you'll need it to prove that they're natives working on the Navajo Nation. And then also have them fill out a W-9 form, IRS W-9. It'll tell you, they'll give you instructions on how to fill that out. But you need to have those on file at all times. Their Social Security card, their ID, their state ID, and their W-9, and then also their CIB. And then have those on file, a hard copy file. If you do electronic, make sure you store it off location, like in the cloud, that's secure. And then also make sure that they fill it out sometimes they'll check exempt, so you're not going to withhold anything. If they check if they check that they want a withholding, they'll put $5 extra, or you'll calculate withholding. Okay, so bookkeeping. It's very difficult to do bookkeeping without bookkeeping software. I'll tell you which one I use. It's called Bookkeeper. It's a really simple software that you put on your computer, and it's very similar. I used to use QuickBooks when I used to be a chapter manager at Kayenta and Chochimbi, or not Chochimbi, Kayenta and Oljeto. We used to use accounting software called MIP. That's the tribal standard now. Prior to that, we used to use QuickBooks there. So I got a real good hang of QuickBooks, and it's really expensive. Now they don't sell the little disc, right, that you put on your computer. Now it's online. You log into the portal and you do all your stuff online, and they keep it secure for you. But if you cannot afford the monthly fee, get Bookkeeper. It's a software. Just search it online. It's called Bookkeeper. It's a little green icon. Um, and you just load it onto your computer. Very much like QuickBooks, you can start several companies under that software, and you just basically bookkeep. You can print checks out using it. You can keep track of your payroll. So you're going to click on manage your employees, put all your employee information in, name, date of birth, social security number, email address, all of those good things, and then put on their payroll. Click on the payroll tab. How much are they receiving hourly? And then click on taxes, put uh, the taxes that you're going to take out for them. So it's going to be your FICA, your Social Security, your Medicare, and your federal withholding. If they indicate on their W-9 that they want federal withholding withheld. And then you're also going to put on their state federal unemployment taxes. And then basically you're going to click on that, and then it saves it. So when you do your timesheets, it'll be like Monday through Friday, put in all their hours, and it'll calculate all the taxes for you. So when you do your payroll, all you do is you click on each employee, put your check blanks in, and it'll print the check, and it'll print a check stub for you. So very affordable, very user friendly, and they got a lot of tutorials that you can use. So I would recommend those two, Tax Bandit and then Bookkeeper.
James, I put those in the chat. So your Bookkeeper is $39.99. It's
Yes.
through like AvantQuest.
Yes.
So I put that in there if people want to see it.
Okay. Thank you. In the chat, you can click on those and you can basically do your research, but those are the ones I recommend. People that do come to me for a business startup, I do recommend those because they're user friendly. It doesn't take a bookkeeper to use them. It just takes some know-how and some training, and they do have the tutorials. So use those. The best thing you can do is have good records of your business. Make sure that you're keeping track of your payroll. So at the end of the quarter too, you can print quarterly reports out from Bookkeeper, and then you can just input that data into Tax Bandit, and then it'll calculate all of it together. And then you just pay that amount of taxes. Boom, you're done. $4. You filed all your taxes. If you do it in the traditional format, they'll give you a form that has several copies, and they'll tell you fill one out for each employee. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it's called 990 form. And so you have to do all those in duplicate, triplicates. I think send it to the Social Security, send to the tax. But with Tax Bandit, it does it all for you. So make sure that you're maintaining the business. Make sure that you're maintaining your business here on Navajo. Make sure that you're in compliance with your federal taxes. Make sure you're in compliance with your state taxes if you have non-Indian employees. Make sure that you non-Indian. If you have like 5 Navajos, 5 Hopis, and 1 Paiute, you don't pay the state taxes on them. It's only the non-Indians. Okay, so make sure that you have your credentials in place as far as your corporation. Is it incorporated through the state? Is it incorporated through the tribe? Are you going to each of the entities and registering them as a foreign entity? In the manual that we have, it's like over 1,000 pages. It has all the forms in there. You can also find those forms online with the Navajo Nation Business Regulatory. All their forms are on their website. and it'll tell you how to register your foreign entity also. So we've covered quite a bit so far. It's 10, little past 10 o'clock. So just to recap a bit, Navajos, we've always had commerce here. We've always had business. We've always had things that we can sell, trade, buy, everything like that. We had an economy prior to contact with European countries. We had a trade system, a trade route through the Americas, um, east, south, west, north, everywhere. We traded. Um, that system was interrupted, and we went to a different system that's more foreign to us. But we maintained those traditional aspects of trade, right? We trade, we barter, we make sure that our goods and services are goods and services that can be um, acquired without money. Okay. As a law practitioner, that's one of the things that we're allowed to do. Also, sometimes grandma needs help with something in the legal realm. She'll bring in a necklace, and I'll accept that, and I'll do work for her. So that's our traditional way of contracting one another for services. Okay, we do things through keh, and we do things through um, kinship for our community. So, and then the other thing is, make sure that you know what your business is. Make sure that you know if your business fits in the community. Make sure that your business is a need in the community, or that it can be presented and become a need. Okay. um, make sure that your business fills some sort of niche in the community, and make sure that your business is reasonable, and be reasonable about it yourself also. If you say, man, I'm going to start a Wally Water World here, is it going to be successful? If you scale it down, you might start a small water park or something like that. But don't think Six Flags right off the bat. Be reasonable. If you start a tour company, it's probably better you buy some used vehicles, fix them up, get them going, um, because there's always the chance that you might have to liquidate it later. Um, People have this weird concept that you have to buy new everything in order for your business to be successful. Let me tell you what, if you can refurbish things and put a nice a coat of paint on there, it'll work. If if you can take stainless steel service stuff, clean it up, and make it work, it'll work. I bought my pizza dough mix secondhand off of a guy who tried to start a pizza business, but decided that he was going to go into producing hummus. And I toured his factory. It was a really neat setup. This was down in Chandler, Arizona. And we took a tour unexpectedly of his entire setup and how he started it. And I got a lot of good pointers from him. And then at the end of the thing, we got our mixer, we took it out, and he sold it to me for $1,000, which is really reasonable. I mean, those things are expensive, those big giant mixers. And he just wanted to get rid of it. So you can find people that are doing that. And Dan, he gave us some samples and a bag of chips, and we were on our way. And you talk to other entrepreneurs, talk to other business people. You know what? Business people love to talk about themselves and their businesses. You can get a lot of good information off of people, and they're willing to, they'll sit down, they'll make the time because they love talking about these stuff. Okay. And then make sure that you're in compliance with all the regulatory agencies. Main ones: Navajo Nation Business Regulatory. Under the Navajo Nation Business Regulatory, you're not only going to incorporate if you want to, but you're also going to have to go through like a mini SAS process. That's going to go to DOJ. They're going to make sure you're not, you're in compliance with them. It's going to go to Navajo Nation Tax. Do you have a Navajo Nation Tax certificate? If you don't, apply for one. It's really easy. The Navajo Nation Tax Commission has their website too. So make sure those are the two main ones: Navajo Business Regulatory and Navajo Nation Tax Commission. Make sure you have your credentials through them to operate here on Navajo. The third one is if you need it in the state of Arizona, make sure you're compliant there also. Make sure you have your tax credentials from them. If you're going to go through the business regulatory there, make sure you have your credentials through them. Very easy too through the business regulatory. You can just do everything online. Back in the day, you would have to publish your articles of incorporation. Recently, I started two companies for other people. There was no requirement to publish. Cost savings, that was $350 to publish. Um, if you select the express processing, you can get your corporate documents in 1 day. So they made it very easy to start businesses on paper nowadays. Now, the hard part, finding funding. If you're the only person that is going to be part of your business, make sure you're using a form of business that is applicable and sustainable. If you're a jewelry maker and you want to do jewelry sales and you're the only one that makes jewelry, sole proprietor is probably the best route. You can incorporate, but when you incorporate, you need other people to help. You need a board. You need people that you trust. So make sure that you have your business structured properly. Some people I've seen, uh, like carpenters, they say, I'm gonna start a contracting company, and they start a contracting company and they get all these people on board, and you go to the job sites and they're really the only one that's doing all the stuff, and you got 5 workers that are trying to look busy, and you're like, man, you don't need all those people. You probably need one helper and yourself. Start out slow. Make sure that you're not overusing human capital, and you're making sure that your financial resources are suitable for it. Okay. um, and then also, the last thing in this section I'm going to talk about is maintain the Navajo business person. You as a Navajo business person are not a machine. You have a family, you have obligations other than your business. You have to eat, you have to sleep. Make sure you do those things. This is a very difficult, challenging thing to do as a Navajo business person. I can tell you, um, sometimes I don't sleep a lot. Sometimes I skip breakfast and then I eat a huge dinner, right? Sometimes you're on the go. For example, if I have court in Tuba City, I don't have time to eat in Kayenta. I have to leave here early. And so what do I end up doing? Eating the wrong things, right? I'll be over at KFC buying something salty, and then I'll eat it and then I'll come back, right? The thing that I've seen other entrepreneurs do is they cook all their food Sunday night, right? And they put it in these little, what do they call that? Meal prepping. They'll put it in these little containers and they'll put it in the freezer. So in the morning, they'll get out a container, they'll warm it up, and they'll be eating their sausage and hot cakes. And um, for their lunch, they have these, cut up veggies and, potatoes and whatnot. So they're eating good. Take care of yourself. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you're drinking water, right? That's kind of crazy thing to say. Make sure you're drinking water. But entrepreneurs, they'll go days. They'll be like, when was the last time I drank water? I think it was 2, 3 days. Oh my God, I've been drinking coffee this whole time, keeping going. So make sure you take a little bottle of water. I like this little thing called Life Straw. You can buy it on Walmart.com. It's like a bottle, and it has a straw that goes in there, and you can fill it up anywhere, and it'll clean water for you, and you'll have really good tasting water. Navajo Nation, we have hard water, right? So if you drink too much of it, you know what can happen. You'd be over constipated, right? So a lot of times when you use that life straw, it takes those minerals out. And make sure you're drinking water, make sure you're eating good, make sure you're sleeping, and then also make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Your appearance, make sure that you're dressed nice, make sure that you have all these things going on for yourself, because a lot of times entrepreneurs, they can look pretty rugged and you're like, oh my God, that person's wearing themselves down. So make sure that you're doing things that will sustain you also. not just your business. You are an important component of your business. Make sure that you're doing things to take care of yourself. One of the things that I have a hard time doing is not working on Saturday, Sunday, right? I'm still taking, sure, I can meet you on Saturday. Sure, I can call you on Sunday, right? So sometimes take a break. Um, so let's go on to the page 3. Page 3 basically is maintaining your business. Okay, one thing that I didn't cover is deadlines. So when you have your business all set up, you're doing what you need to do with your business, make sure that your filings are compliant. Okay, you're going to pay taxes 4 times a year if you pay quarterly, right? January, February, March, and then April. Your taxes at the end of April are due. So 3 months, that's 1 quarter. Then the following month, your taxes are due. And if you sign up with Tax Bandit, they'll send you a little email. Hey, your taxes are due in 10 days. So make sure you're paying your taxes on time. Navajo Nation won't do that. They'll just send you a nasty letter if you miss the filing date. They'll say, hey, you owe us $10, including the taxes that you didn't pay. If you don't pay it, we're going to start suspending this, and that. So make sure that you're paying your taxes on time. The other thing is make sure you're keeping your records. Kristen, do you got page 3 up? Make sure that you're also keeping good records. If you use Bookkeeper, you can give invoices, and you can also keep track of your sales. So make sure that every time you get a check, or every time you come back from like a powwow where you went selling your jewelry, make sure you input the money that you brought in. One jewelry seller that I know from Shanto, him and his dad, they sell, oh, not jewelry, herbs. His dad is a medicine man. He goes out, he gets all these herbs, they prepare them, and they sell them at the flea markets, and they write down every sale they make. Throughout the time he was growing up, his dad did the same thing. They hit up all the flea markets, so they have all their expenses written down. Gas to Chinle Flea Market, this is how much we spent. They put the receipt in there. And they use just a regular notebook, and they just take receipts in there, and they put on there, this is how much we sold this this herb. There we had 10 bags, and we sold 5 at Chinle. This is how much we made, $50 off of it. And they would just keep track of it. And at the end of the year, he would file his dad's taxes, filing a Schedule C, and then he would claim child tax credit, and he would get a refund. And I was like, wow, you guys got your business all set up, and they still operate like that. Now he's not old enough to get tax credit, but he still files taxes. And I said, that's amazing, you guys. And they keep good records, even though it's a notebook. But if you get Bookkeeper, you can use it to keep records. But as an entrepreneur, carry around a little notebook, or at least something like this. Open up a notepad, and then keep good records so you can input your data later, because that's what's going to matter. Even when you apply for grants, if you're a nonprofit, data matters. They're going to ask you, how do you fundraise? How much do you bring in for fundraising? How much is your expenditures? What is your tax debt every quarter? How much payroll taxes do you pay? All of that is all data that is required. So keep good records. You will have good numbers if you keep good records. Okay. The other thing is closing out your fiscal year. Most everybody will go by calendar year. So January is the beginning of your year, and December 31st is the end of your year. Some people will go by October, right? The tribe, October is the new fiscal year. The school, July is the new fiscal year. So everybody has their own closeouts for their fiscal year. Make sure you close that out, especially in your bookkeeping software. Close the year out so you have that data all set. Otherwise, your information will start running together. Make sure if you keep ledgers, like just hard copy ledgers, make sure you close those out every year. and make sure that you have good records on that when you close those out. Um, One of the biggest misconceptions I'll tell you guys is nonprofits. When nonprofits operate, like let's say there's some sort of income or revenue, people think that they have to spend it by the end of their fiscal year and start with zero at the beginning of the year, and that's not the situation. There's always going to be some money in there. If you're making some sort of revenues, like let's say you're fundraising, let's say you hold a Valentine's Day state dinner, state line is there, and 50 people show up and they all pay $100 a plate. All that money is going to go in as fundraising. You're gonna put that in your bank account, and you're going to keep that there so you can sustain your business throughout the following year, right? You don't have to rush December 30th trying to spend all your money. That's not what nonprofit means. Nonprofit means that the income that you're making for your projects and for your payroll, they're not going to your board members. Okay, like my business, we have a board member, a board of 4. So those people never get paid. We don't give them stipends, we don't give them gas money, we don't buy them jackets, nothing. That money that is made stays in the business to use for programs and projects. Okay, so I've seen nonprofits rush to spend everything. They start from zero. I said that's not sustainable as a business. So if you look at a corporation, you have a board, maybe you have 5 members. When you're done, those when they're done with the fiscal year, sometimes those board members will get bonuses or stipends. So they'll say we had a good first, second, third quarter, fourth quarter was kind of sketchy, but because we were successful 1 through 3, you guys are all getting a bonus right before Christmas, right? You're getting $2,000, $3,000. The business owner, the money, the profits in there minus all the operating expenses projected will go to that person, right? That money goes to them. So it upstreams. There under your corporation, you can do S corporations also. It's a whole different tax situation, but that's an option. So make sure that you're operating according to your business structure, and then make sure that you're operating realistically too. Just go through some of these trainings. Then there's also books you can read that will tell you how to do these things. Also, if you need additional help later on, we might offer consulting services, small fees for that under the nonprofit. Um, so the other thing that I want to talk about under section 3 is selling and closing your business. Going back to my pizzeria days that I talked about, when we closed business, the last day we were in operation, I went in, the stove wasn't working. We were having issues with the stove, and the stove is the key um, appliance that we need to sustain the business. And we changed parts, did all sorts of things, and that thing was running hot, and it was running not the way it was supposed to. And finally, I just had it. I said, "Okay, I think we're done." You know, I'm tired of this. I have other things. I have another business that I'm building, so um, it's too much. So we closed it and we sold it. We sold all of the equipment. We sold all of the dishes, everything. Well, I said I made my money during that sale, not during the operation of the business. So make sure that your business is, and don't be afraid to close it if it's not jiving. If the business is not being successful, don't be so invested in it to say this is not viable, this is not sustainable. You can always go to a different type of business. You can scale it down too. If you have a brick and mortar restaurant that's selling Navajo tacos, Navajo burgers, scale it down and get a food truck. Sell the brick and mortar business and get a food truck, be mobile and build it up from there. Like I said, be reasonable with it. Make sure that it's sustainable and viable. Don't think that your business has to be shiny, polished, and everything. I've seen some of the most rugged businesses become very successful businesses. Going back to my stepdad's tour business, starting out with one vehicle, welded together to having several vehicles in better condition, buses things like that, horses even. So build your business. Don't think that it's one and done. Don't think that you're just going to do it once and that's it, and your business is going to be successful. It's a process. You have to invest your time, effort, and you know what? Even your tears into it, because it'll frustrate you. You know, there's many a times that I've gone before a medicine man just to vent about all the stresses of starting businesses. There's times that I've gone before relatives and talked about the stresses of business. Once you find your knack, you will be okay. So keep at it, but don't be afraid to close it. Don't be afraid to revamp it. Don't be afraid to scale it down. Be flexible with how you conduct business, because that flexibility will be a key to your success. So when you do close down a business, like let's say, like with my pizzeria shop, I had a tax ID number, I had tax liabilities, I had all sorts of different things that had to do with the structure of the business that I needed to close out. They don't close it out for you. You have to give these entities notice. Dear Arizona State Corporation Commission, this business closed on this date. Please change the status from active to inactive. They'll do that. Let the IRS know so they're not 5 years down the road knocking on your door. You haven't paid taxes 5 years. Make sure that you're compliant with their requirements on closing the business. If you do try to scale down, keep everything the same, you don't have to close down your IDs and whatnot and start it over. Just let it be known in your own records that you're scaling down. Okay. All right, let's go to chapter 4. Realistic picture of business on the Navajo Nation. The capital is one of them. That's the biggest one. Raising money to start your business. If you use your own money, make sure that it's money you're willing to lose if it goes under. Okay. Don't put the farm on the line. You know what I mean? Don't sell the farm to start your business. Make sure that you are sustainable also. Okay. And then make sure that when you do finally come across capital, that it's viable capital. Don't get $100,000 loan to start up a $10,000 business. Okay. I seen people do that. Navajos, we go and we get a huge loan, right? We get $100,000 loan. Next thing you know, that guy's cruising around in a SUV. What did they call those? The fancy ones, Escalade, right? They have a drop top on the res. It's like one of those situations where you cannot spend the money that you're supposed to use for capital on your own personal expenses. Don't start buying Rolexes, showing up to the chapter meeting in a suit and tie. Don't start doing things like that. That will affect your capital. Okay. Don't mix your personal money with your business money. That's the best practice. If you're going to mix your money with it, make sure that you put that money in a separate account and that you're not going to touch it. It's spent specifically for working capital. Okay. Don't start dipping into it. Make sure that loan is payable back to you from your revenues also. Don't get a big giant loan out, not be able to pay it, spend it, and be liable for it. Okay. So make sure you're careful with your capital. Real estate. If you're starting a taco shop, make sure you scale it to meet the needs of the community. When we were doing the pizzeria, I said, let's try to change this into like a quick Mexican food restaurant. Didn't work. It wasn't popular. They didn't like us taking stuff off the menu and changing it from pizza to Mexican food. The other thing is those bigger chain businesses, they have more working capital than small businesses. So like Pizza Edge, they have more working capital. They have more revenue because they have different locations. So they can last, any economic challenge. Like they're still in business even after COVID. Taco Bell, they cornered the market on fast food Mexican food, right? So don't try to start up something that's going to compete with a giant. Okay. You got to pick your battles wisely. Make sure you're filling a niche that isn't filled yet. Okay. Navajo Nation does not have enough people on there to support several similar businesses. Okay. For example, look at Burger King and McDonald's in Kayenta. We got two burger joints. Where's the crowd? McDonald's. Sonic, so McDonald's is more known. So you got one big giant trying to, corner the market in the community. So don't start something that's repeating the service. Okay. Um, if you're starting something besides food and jewelry and stuff like that, let's say you're starting a non-emergency transport business, make sure that you're promoting it, make sure that you have the right structure, make sure you're in compliance. Those types of businesses are build businesses. So you provide the service and you bill a third party for that service. Very viable, because that money's not coming from the local economy, it's coming from outside to service the local economy. Okay. um, there's those business types out there. So look at the business. Where are you going to put the business? Are you going to build? If you build, are you using 50% of your working capital to build? Is that a smart move? Is it going to be sustainable? Do you have further working capital outside of that money you're going to spend to make sure that you're going to pay your employees? Um, One of the biggest things that I've learned, and I got some of my family members sitting right here, is it's a challenge to have a family business. Okay. Because when you work together and you go home together and you're the boss, who are they going to complain about, right? There's a lot of stuff that will happen in a family when you got a family business. It's different. Like for the pizzeria, it was really different because it was high stress, it was high speed. But in the current business that I have, it's different. It's not. We're not serving a good. We're promoting a service instead. So there's a big difference between the two that I've noticed, and it seems a lot more. It seems a lot more viable, and I can see it lasting long term with the service rather than the goods. The goods, right? We're yelling at each other. Where's that pizza? The oven, shut the oven door, right? I'll tell you something funny. My brother threw a phone at me one time, a cell phone during business. Um, my mom yelled at me one time in front of all the customers, and it's hectic. So beware, family businesses. Make sure that everybody knows their purpose and make sure everybody knows who the boss is in the business, right? I can say, hey, I'm calling the shots here. You're my worker. And of course, they'll say, no, I'm your older sibling. You don't talk to me that way. So when you come home, it carries over to home. So be really careful about that. The longevity of the business is also, you have to take that into consideration. Um, but going back to real estate real quick, make sure that if you're renting a business site lease, make sure you have enough capital to cover at least 2 years rent. Make sure that your lease is renewable. There's always an option to renew. For my pizza place, I leased out a small area next to the Speedway gas station. Really affordable, $600 a month. But make sure you have enough money to pay rent. Um, Business longevity. Make sure your business is set up to where you're not going to argue. Of course, there's going to be arguing. You always see those dramatic movies, right? All the board members, you can't handle the truth kind of situation. But make sure that everybody knows their place. Make sure you have job descriptions. There's templates out there. If you go to Swift Form, Swift like fast, form.com, they have a lot of forms on there, including um, how to create job descriptions, business manuals. Like you're going to need basically the five, right? Like just like Navajo Nation 5 management plan. You're going to have to know how to inventory your equipment, your assets. You're going to have to know um, how to hire people, your employees. You're going to have to know how to procure stuff, how to buy stuff, right? Is it going to go 3 bids? Are you going to sole source? You're going to have to know about property, all of those things. And so that 5 management system tends to work better, and Swift does have a copy of that. It's just a template. Again, you just type in business name, how many employees, and all this stuff, and it'll create the whole manual for you. If you start a business on Navajo Nation, one of the other things you have to be compliant with is you have to go to the Navajo Nation Office of Navajo Labor Relations and file your employee policy manual with them. If you don't, they'll write you a nasty letter and say, you're not in compliance, you need to file this or else, And so make sure that you're working with those offices here. So the other thing is that goes along with business longevity, not only including capital, business structure, how you're going to structure your employees, but also is that niche sustainable? Okay. Kayenta, we used to be a mining town. Black Mesa Pipeline and Kayenta Mine were the 2 big mines here. Both of them closed down. Of course, we always need housing still, but mobile housing. When you look at the trailer park here, you see a lot of spaces now. You see a lot of abandoned trailers. People that once worked at the mine, non-Navajos, used to live there. People that are no longer with the mine left town. So there's a lot of spaces empty. How do we fill that niche? So what relates to your business? If you're in a jewelry business, are you going to set up shop at let me see, what is one of those chapters way out there? Are you going to go to Black Mesa chapter and set up shop? There's not a lot of through traffic, right? It's not on a major thoroughfare. If you set up a jewelry business in Kayenta, you're probably going to be a lot more successful because it's on 2 main thoroughfares. So what's connected to your business that will ensure its longevity? Where are your customers coming from? So I've seen people being really creative. Some people are in those chapters that are way out in the middle of nowhere. They work from home, they create their jewelry products, and there's no people coming through. So what they do is they sell online. I've seen people sell jewelry on eBay. They start their own website, so and so Navajo Gallery online, and they sell their products there. Okay, there's several platforms you can use to create a website. Really easy. It's just plug in your information and photos and go. Okay, there's what is it? Wix, GoDaddy. What was that? ST? Was it? It's one of those. But they basically provide a platform for you. Very easy to get your products out there. Finding the people that will buy it is one of the challenges, but they also have these data set, this algorithm that they can use to promote your business. You just click on it, right? Who do you want to promote your business to if it's jewelry? People that in the past bought jewelry online, people interested in Native American jewelry, and it'll have all that information there, and they'll send it all out to those people. It'll market for you. Very easy these days. It wasn't like that back in the olden days. So think of ways that your business will be lasting. Look at the available resources in the community. What is there that will also support your business? Resources again, businesses that will feed your business customers. Okay. People often come to Kayenta to do several things. There's outlining chapters, right? There's Denahotso, there's Chochimbito, there's Ojeto, there's Shanto, Black Mesa, all these areas. Now they used to come to Kayenta, right, to wash all their clothes. Now Denahotso started their own laundromat. Shanto started their own laundromat. So now that affects those people coming into town, right? Now they have their stores and their laundromat combo. So now they don't need to run to Kayenta to do laundry or to get their snacks or gas. They can stay in their own community. So that affects the revenues here of certain businesses. Okay. What draws those people in? Businesses that will people will come to Kayenta for food, right? Fast food. That's one of the people will come to Kayenta, buy their pizza. Hey, we're in Kayenta already. Let's do our laundry. Do their laundry instead of doing it in Denhoto or Shanto. And then they say, hey, let's wash the vehicle. The truck's all muddy. So now they're doing three things, right? They're eating, they're doing their laundry, and now they're washing their vehicle. So you have to kind of situate yourself. It's kind of like, right, those little fish that attach themselves to the shark so they can eat all the stuff the shark also attacks. So you kind of want to attach yourself to those giant businesses like that that will feed customers to you. Success is in your behavior. That is one thing. We'll close out with this, and then we'll go to questions. Success is in your behavior. Okay, behavior is one of the key things that is required in order to make your business successful. If you have a bad attitude or if you have a bad outlook, your business is not going to succeed. Sorry to say, but okay, let me give you some examples. People that have equipment, let me give you an example of my own. When our mixer used to break down, right? The pizza cooks would always get mad. Why are you buying used equipment? Why are you? But I learned how to repair my mixer. I learned how to buy parts. I learned how to take it apart and fix it so that it's working. We never went a full day without our mixer. Okay. But if you have a bad attitude about it, you would be taking it out, dragging it outside and hitting it with a stick out in the parking lot and calling it names, right? Have you ever seen that movie, Office Space? Remember the last day of work, they take the printer out in the wilderness and they just beat it up. The printer doesn't feel it, right? The only thing that you're going to do is upset yourself and get your blood pressure going. And some people say it relieves it, but really, I think it just upsets them more than anything. So the other thing is be kind to your employees and your customers. Okay, being kind to your employees doesn't mean giving them everything they want and babying them. It just means that you have to be firm and fair at the same time. Go by your policies, but give them that courtesy that they deserve. Okay, so good example of what I do with my summer workers. This is for the summer kids that I host from the chapter house. Every week I give them an assignment. So we do construction, we work on different things. At the end of the week on Friday, I let them know what they did good and what they did not so good. So I'll give them a text message. Hey, Sammy, fictitious name. This week, I noticed that you were on your phone texting too much and you were not texturing the walls quick enough. The other guys finished one room every day, and you only finished one wall. So do not text during work hours. I need you to leave your phone elsewhere in the truck or wherever you're going to put it in your backpack. And then I said, but the wall that you did is perfect. I love the way you did it. The texture came out nice. Do that on all four walls next week. And often I'll get a reply, thank you, okay. Or some of them will say, I'm sorry, I'll leave my phone out. And then some of them don't. Some of them won't even reply. And those are the ones you have to work with. So working with your employees, it takes a lot of energy. Sometimes you would just love to fire everybody, right? All 5 of you get out. But you can't do that because you need them. Some of them are skilled. And I had a good discussion with one of my workers. We were saying, oh, we just fire all these people and then do this. I said, you can't, because those people are skilled. I put a lot of resources into them to develop them. I may let them go at some point if they keep messing up, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and I'm going to work with them. And that takes a lot of patience and takes a lot of skill. A lot of my patience is spent during work, working with clients and working with my own workers. So when I get home, I'm cranky, right? And my office is just right next to my home. So I go right home and everybody's like, oh, here comes James. He looks like he's upset. But you kind of have to just give me some time. I'll get over it and we'll move on. But make sure you're also affording that to your customers. I see all too often, and woo, this one reservation tire shop I went to recently, he's yelling at his customers. I'm not going to say who, where, when, what, why, but he was yelling at his customers. Hey, get your car out of the driveway. I'm pulling in another vehicle. I'm like, wow, that's not a good way to ask. Ma'am, next person behind you was here first. We're going to pull them into the bay. Can you move your vehicle and then come back in and I'll get with you, right? He could have said something like that, but he didn't. And that made the lady really like, are you serious? Are you talking to me like that? But the lady went out, moved her vehicle, still got her tires from there. I wouldn't have. I would have walked off. And that's exactly what I did. I was trying to get a tire repaired there. And so when you're offering a service or business, don't feel so high and successful that you can't be courteous to your own customers. Every customer's, even if it's a small purchase, you're at a gas station, someone buys a candy bar, that's money in your pocket. If you get a reputation of being really negative, people won't come there. And it works vice versa. If you're too forceful in how you communicate with people, like, hey, how are you doing? You're just too nice. People won't come back, not because you're too nice, but because they're scared to, use up all that niceness, I guess you could call it. And I'm like that. I'm like, oh man, that guy at the counter is just too nice. And, I just, when I encounter him, I just, that niceness is like once in a while kind of niceness. So don't overdo it. Just be courteous. And make sure that you're working well with your employees and with your staff. So success is in your behavior and your attitude. If you have a bad attitude in other areas also, like for example, um, one little thing happens and you're just saying, oh shoot, just I had a bad day today. I'm not going to open up shop tomorrow. Then even though your door says Monday through Friday, um, you're not being consistent with your hours. So have that behavior of being consistent, because we're all creatures of habit, right? Hey, 10 o'clock, this place is open. Let's go get a burrito. Be consistent. We're creatures of habit. And have that good attitude no matter what you're going through. Because you know what? People don't care. Like for me, example, I go to court. One good example I can give you is I lost my father 2 years into my law practice, and I missed a court hearing, and it was in a kind of an emergency situation. So I didn't go to court, and judge got after me. So there's no reason why you shouldn't have filed a motion to continue. We have process procedures here. You need to adhere to them too. So I got a oral admonishment, and I said, I'm sorry. Now I know, even though, an emergency happens, I have to let other people know the situation. Okay. It's only good practice. And it may seem mean, it may seem awful, and the judge is just mean. I'm gonna go say something to her while she's shopping at Walmart in Farmington or Flag. It doesn't work that way. You have to be nice. Even in positions like I'm in, school board member, I go to a restaurant. Some people don't like the decisions we make, and they'll give me the stink eye, but I had to live with it. I still call them relative, to the best I can. And so you have to have that attitude. The other thing I'll also tell you, in addition to that, is don't be don't be sensitive to being told no. For example, if you're going to go through the Navajo Nation and try to consulting, I'll give you an example. When I was doing consulting work, I was trying to get a contract with one of the local chapters, and they had me go through the SAS process. Those of you in Navajo tribal government will know that is a hectic process. They would send back my application. This is missing. I would put that paper in there, send it back. You need to do this, send it back. You need to do that. And pretty soon, I've seen people have gone through the SAS process, and there's like, we never got past DOJ. We just said, forget it. But I didn't do that. I kept up until the contract was, ready, and we did the project. So be positive, positive and consistent about correcting things. And it's like that with grant projects too. They'll send it back to you all the time. This needs to be done. This needs to be done. Just do it. Don't get upset. I've seen Navajos yell at people on the phone. You're racist. You're sending this back to me. That's not the case. They're sending everybody's grant projects back to them to correct. And they're not saying no. They're just saying correct this. But if they tell you no, make sure you tell them, okay, if it's no, what can I do to start the process again, or to make sure that the process is correct, right? I've been told no, certain things. Mr. Nez, you didn't turn in your grant form 75 something, on just a fictitious number, on time. So you're not going to be considered for the grant, but you can apply next year again. Thank you for allowing me to apply again. I'll be sure to get my forms in on time, and then you leave them knowing your name, knowing your company's name, knowing that you're a good attitude, you're a team player. When you're told no, you're going to bounce back from that and reapply, and they're going to be, it's going to look good on you. Okay, we've done that with chapters. Some chapters I've worked with, they're being told no by Navajo or Window Rock. And I tell them, you need to use the strategy. Be persistent. We corrected that until there's nothing else to correct, and you're getting your way. That's being persistent. That's having a good attitude and having a good behavior. So incorporate that in your business. I'll say 50% of being an entrepreneur requires paperwork, requires funding, requires everything that we've talked about today. The other 50% is your will to do it, your attitude to do it, and your behavior to do it. Okay. So make sure you have those things. You're encompassing of those qualities. Okay. Take time, like I said in the chapters prior. Make sure you take time. If you get frustrated, make sure you take time out. Make sure that you go and do something that you enjoy doing. One thing that I like doing is and some people think this is weird, on my downtime when I like to relax, I drag this blade around and I grade my road around my house and down the ways, and I go to my neighbors and I grade theirs, and they're happy with it. They text me, thank you for grading our road, and that's relaxing. I listen to music while I do it, and I think, and I process things, all these things that I'm encountering, the frustrations. I think about those things while I'm driving around. Okay, do something that's going to benefit you. Don't go and start being a substance abuse user and taking it out on the bottle and whatnot. That's a behavior that doesn't contribute to you and your success. Do things that are going to be positive, and it's going to contribute to your behavior and your success. Okay, so make sure that you're handling your business. The other 50%, your attitude, your behavior, plays a big portion in it. Okay, all right, so that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions? I know Kristen has another small presentation to give about business plans. If there's no questions, we can let Kristen go ahead and go with her presentation.
Well, James, I was going to recommend before we do that, if there are no questions, or if people want to put their questions in the chat, but we take maybe a 10-minute break, give people a little bit of a chance to, if they have to use the bathroom or refresh their water, and then we'll jump back to the presentations to say at 12:15 we come back on.
My name's Valentina. I'm an admin assistant for the Navajo Division of Social Services. We run into a lot of problems with not being able to find affordable housing, office space, event space, meeting space. What's the major hindrance on that building on Navajo infrastructure?
Oh, that's a whole presentation in itself, but I'll get the gist of it to you. So the Navajo Nation requires a lot of, and I think it's like this everywhere. If you are to build a brick and mortar site, let's say you're going to Chinle. Let's say you want to build Jonah's Taco Shanty, and you say, I want it to be a building, and you want to put a building up, you get a 2-acre lot. You're going to have to go through a lot of hoops for that. You're going to have to go through structuring your business, everything we talked about now, making sure that you can get the survey done on it, make sure you can get your archaeological review done, your cultural heritage review done, your fish and wildlife stuff done. So the Navajo tribe has all these people that are players in getting that site approved for the building itself. From there, if that site is located on a certain area, maybe somebody grazes right there, you have to get their consent also. And then if it's no, it's no, then you have to go to a different spot. So a lot of times, for example, here in Kayenta, this is what I heard. I haven't read anything about it, but this is just on the Janenu circuit, which it seemed like it was something that was actual. So Walmart came in and they said, township says, hey, let's do a Walmart here. This is back in the 90s. And Walmart did a survey, how much traffic flows through the area. And they gave a report and they said, Kayenta is not suitable. It's not feasible because you only have a certain rush of traffic that comes through here a certain time of year, tourist season. But it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable in the sense that you don't have enough mom and pop shops here to attract people. What's going to get them to come to Kayenta rather than go to Farmington or Flagstaff? You have to have local business in order to attract people. Like I said, is the giant Burger King bringing in people that need to wash and do their laundry and stuff? Then they said it wasn't good enough. It wasn't enough. So one is the economics of it. Two is the process they had to go through to get a business up and running. That's why they made Navajo Shopping Center, so that they can offer those smaller shops that people can go and rent and use. Of course, there's a high rotation, right? There's shops that are there one day, gone the next, there one day, gone the next. And so there's a high, it's a revolving door basically. So if you were to allow a lot of these businesses to put up, a structure, most likely that structure is going to be empty if it's not a sustainable business. As to the housing, it's the same situation. Funding is one big one. People don't have enough money to pay for big housing projects. Of course, in the news, right? In NHA has all sorts of money to do that, but they're not using it effectively. And the council is saying, let's get rid of NHA. But if you slay one monster and create another monster, I mean, you're in the same boat. You just have to get people in there that will use that money effectively. And I'm not talking against any entity of the reservation, but there just needs to be people that know how to do these things. We're renovating 2 houses at Sandstone here in Kayenta under my nonprofit, under a USDA grant. So there's money out there, but I'll tell you the thing, under that grant, this guy from the USDA, he was running around trying to look for a nonprofit entity on the reservation to take over that grant and to manage it and to do the work, and he could not find anybody. Those that were interested said we're interested and then just dropped off the face of the earth after that. So there needs to be the talent and the training and those people willing to invest in the community to get housing going, to get businesses going. Okay. The township here, I think they pull in like $3-4 million in tax revenue every year. They do small projects, and they're doing like a industrial park east of Kayenta right now. So that's kind of like a business incubator right there. So you need communities to come together to do those things. As for housing, affordable housing, it's going to take that tribal government entity that is vested with that duty to do those kind of things and to use the money effectively and not be in compliance to where that money could be recaptured by the federal government. That's a disservice to our people. So there's a lot to it, but on the economic side, um, we have to work at the local level. Okay, there's the tribal level where business development can happen, and it's not happening. Okay, there's at the tribal level where housing development can happen, but it's not happening. But we can bring in the talent that could do these things at the bottom, at the individual level of, hey, you have an idea, let's try to develop the idea. A business could be affordable housing too. One person that came to me goes, hey, what do you think about this? He says, you remember all those? Have you been out to Goulding's area at Monument Valley? In Goulding's, they have those little tiny homes. And it's like really nice. It looks like a trailer park setup, but they're tiny homes. You go in there, they have one room, one restroom, and that's all the people need to stay there overnight. And some people were saying, man, I would love one of those because I travel every day from Window Rock to Kayenta and back and forth. I could stay there Monday through Friday and it'd be affordable. And it's just a one room and one restroom. That's all I need. And so you got people thinking these ideas. What if we did Octagon Hogan with that same concept of small, tiny home living for maybe single people or couples that are professionals? Because NHA, they're focused on what? Family housing. What about people that don't have the families? You got one person occupying a 3-bedroom, and what does NHA do? You're only one person occupying a 3-bedroom. We're going to move you to a 2-bedroom. A couple months later, we're going to move you to a 1-bedroom. A couple months later, we're going to move you from Kayenta to Kaibito because there's housing that's smaller out there. And you get pushed around. But if you have these, if you focus on a niche that's not addressed in the community, like single people or couples that need housing, you can create those octagon villages and they could live there and work and do the things that they need to do. You can rent them out to people that are here for short periods of time, construction workers, right? So there's all sorts of ideas, and this guy's just kind of cooking this idea up, and I'm just like, dude, that's do it, let's try to put it together. And so he was asking like, where would I get the money for it? I said, you're a carpenter, get your team together and let's build it. You don't need other people coming in to do that. Businesses, one idea that I had when I was with Kayenta chapter is there's a land tract out there that's not even being used. I said, people are wanting to sell food, jewelry, and do entertainment at night, right? Their country band, their powwow singing. There's a big group of people, tourists that come in throughout the year. I said, why don't we capture that crowd and we can make some money off of it? I said, let's build like an old west kind of town. I don't know if some of you have been to Old Tucson. It's a theme park, but it's built like an old west style, old west framing. But you go into the building and it's like a modern building, but there's just the exterior is just all old west style facade. Let's build one like that and let's rent them out, not monthly. Let's just do it weekly. So people, if they want to get out of it and they don't want to do it, they can leave. I said, let's put entertainment in there to draw the tourist crowd in there, so they'll eat there and they'll buy stuff there. And we were really on board to doing that, but it just kind of fell apart when the administration changed over. So an Old West town would really be a spot, and you can use it year round, right? It doesn't have to be just for the tourists. Somebody wants to start, cook up some mutton over there and have an open grill right there. They can, and they can use that area to promote business. So our focus on this presentation is kind of at the grassroots level, as they say. How can we get people to bring their idea to become something on paper, to becoming something fundable, to become something that it comes into existence and runs and operates and sustains itself, those types of things. So, but it's a challenge to have economic development on the reservation, going back to Wilkins, without knowing what we can and cannot do as a sovereign and as a people also. Because as people, we have authority too. We have free enterprise. We have the ability to say, I have a business idea that I want to create, and actually build and actually operate. So those are the things that we're focusing on. the tribal level, it's going to take council, it's going to take president, it's going to take relationships, government to government. And we here right now and under what we're doing, we just don't have the ability to influence that type of movement, but we do have the ability to influence the type of movement that comes from the grassroots level. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yes, it does.
All right. So shall we do a 10-minute break and then we'll come back? Hopefully everybody can stay on for Kristen's presentation. It's really good. It talks about how to develop a business plan, which is basically your starting point when you start your business concept. So we'll take a 10-minute break. It is 11:15. We'll come back at 11:25. Thank you, guys. If you have any other questions, in the meantime, you want to write them in the chat box. I'll get to those also.
Thank you. Thanks again, James, for your sharing your stories and what you've learned along the way and your insights, and just very educational. So really thank you for that. I also wanted to talk with you guys before I go into this creating your business plan. I don't know if you want to share in the chat if there is a business idea that you're thinking about, or if you want to share it to the group, that would be great as well. Because while we go along this presentation, I'll see, what I can do about incorporating some of those thoughts and ideas into this. Otherwise, there is a laundromat example that I have for when we were working with the Yoelopaki community, and so I can use that too. So like I said, I'll keep an eye on the chat if you guys want to share there, or if you want to interrupt me and share as well, or have any questions along the way, please let me know. All right, so in essence, your first step in creating a business plan is that you want to create your vision and your mission. So what you want to do is think about more of what does your business do? Like, what products are you selling, services, a combination of those? What is it that, as James said, that you really feel like would resonate with the community, has a need or a want? And then being able to say, this is what we're going to do. And then figuring out, well, where am I going to do this? Again, based on what James was saying, it could be mobile, it could be in store, online, primarily. It sounds like more online businesses and mobile may be more accessible. Then who does your business benefit? In the marketing, in the marketing world where I come from, we always had a target market, your audience. Who is your primary audience that you're going to be talking to? Is it for the laundromat? Is it from Yoelopaki community? It was tended to be more elders, as well as we had talked about, families. You're not going to be marketing to children, for example. So you want to sit there and say, who is my primary audience? And then who could my secondary be? Do we want to reach out to other communities that might not have access to laundry? And so those are the, like being able to wash their clothes and do those kinds of things within their community. And we market to them as well. But you want to identify like who that group is for you. And then why would potential customers care? Is there a need, or is there, something that's been lacking? Is it something that you're passionate about that maybe they didn't know they needed, but that they need it? And so why would those people want to give your idea or what you're selling any thought? And then a fifth is how does your product and or service outshine the competition? Maybe there is no competition. And if that's the case, that's wonderful. But within like the laundromat for the Uwalla hockey community for YPC, there were some places where we knew that their community was driving 30 minutes away. And so how did we make sure that we were competitive with pricing, that we offered, loyalty programs, whatever it would be that would give a compelling reason for them to want to come. Some of the competition that we had heard, like it was dirty, it was unkempt, it wasn't clean, and the staff wasn't friendly. So all those things that you hear can go, okay, well, I know what I can be instead of that. And then I know how to present that to the community. And so within this vision and mission, I have a couple slides that will go through exactly what, the vision and the mission are. One other thing that I didn't say at the beginning is that as you look through the slides, each slide is representing a part of the business plan that's in a Word document. I found this, I believe, off of Forbes. And so while you guys are thinking about the vision and mission, if you happen to get, it's a lot to think about and put together, that if you get stuck in that brainstorming piece, go to other things that you need to do in your plan and then come back to this. But also too, if it's more than just a sole proprietorship, get your team involved, because the more people that you have that help you build your vision and your mission and your values, the better of an employee they will be, or the better, partner they will be, because you've done this, and created it together instead of casting it down to everyone. But ultimately, if you are the one that's in charge of this business, you can have the final say, of course, but taking in those others' feedback would be really good. So one of the things I also wanted to add to this is kind of like within your vision and mission is what is your purpose? It's the why. Why do you exist? And why is it that you are doing what you're doing? It's basically your reason for being. Like, why are you out there? Because there isn't competition, and you must have this. Like, you've got to have what I'm, selling. You want it to, doesn't necessarily, like it says, it serves a higher purpose. It helps people. It gives people what they are wanting and what they're needing. It helps your staff want to do good work, focusing on the greater good, again, like on something more than yourselves and your business, how it's going to impact the life of your customer, your target audience. And within your purpose, you want it to be very concise, specific, and precise. So I have a couple examples here. You can read them, but I'll focus on like Campbell's Soup. Campbell's Soup was saying that we are creating real food that matters for life's moments. So that's their purpose. And you go, okay, so what is your purpose? Like being able, it's kind of called the elevator pitch. If I got in an elevator with somebody and I had, 5 floors to talk to them and say, hey, what do you do? You want to be able to summarize that and be able to say it within a minute. And so being able to have your purpose, your mission, and your vision will really help you be able to give people the, why you're here and what are you doing. So what is a vision? A vision is basically taking and looking at where your future successful state will be. Like, what do I want this to be? It can be grandiose. It can be like pie in the sky. What is it that you see this being? And it's kind of where you plan to be and where you're going. It's your dream. And so you still in this, you want to be, again, brief and concise and succinct and clear. Try if you can to have it be a sentence, but you want it to be easy to communicate. I thought, like, when I was looking through to try to find some good vision statements, Wegmans, it's a grocery store on the East Coast, and we promised to take steps to protect our future, or to protect our world for future generations. It's part of our commitment to make a difference in every community we serve. So you can see what their desired state is, like long-term, what they want to be and what they dream of being. Procter & Gamble was another one. And yes, they sell things like paper towels and toilet paper and all, but they wanted to be recognized as the best consumer products and services company in the world. So that is a vision statement as well. Was there a question? So then when you're thinking about a mission, this is the how. Like, this is the thing that requires and inspires you to take action. And how are you going to take your purpose and your vision and be able to turn it into action? And so these are the things that are going to be able to define by the work you do, the people you support, your clients or your customers, the level of service you provide. And then it's, again, if it's an action, it's going to be outcome oriented. Like, what are you hoping comes from this? You want it to be inclusive, but you also want it to be, so that means, like, you want it to be broad, and you don't want to limit yourself within this. So again, I took Wegmans and Procter & Gamble because I wanted you to see kind of how they had their vision, but then how they created their mission. So for Wegmans, it was every day you get our best. And so then you could elaborate on that within, like, your strategies. And then being able to put, well, what does our best mean? And then from a grocery store perspective, you can say, well, we have clean stores. We always have our shelves stocked. We always make sure we have the best products for our customers, those kinds of things. And how we treat our, our staff, all of that. But that is something that you don't have to put in the mission itself, but you create the strategies later. And then for Procter & Gamble, it says, make sure our brands live up to their promise to make everyday life just a little bit better. So then we move on to the next part of the business plan steps, which is offer and value proposition. So what you want to do is, what are you planning to offer? What is the product or service that you want to sell? And then within that, you have your value proposition, which is a statement of how your product or service is going to solve a problem for your target customer. So again, with the YPC having a laundromat, I mean, they not having people having washers and dryers in their homes and them having to drive 30 minutes away, having something close and local is, their value proposition, that they are able to supply something that the community needs. Procter & Gamble, from their products, said, we will provide branded products and services of superior quality and value that improve the lives of the world's consumers now and for generations to come. So again, it's that what is it that they're offering, and how are they providing value? Now, I don't necessarily think you have to say that, put the word value in your value proposition, but they did. So, but their superior quality is what they're going to do to help improve the lives of their customers. So then in your next step, you are going to think about your audience and who your ideal customer is. So we've talked about this a little bit already, but you want to really think about and describe what customer is it that would be ideal to you? Who do you want to bring in? And the reason that you want to do this is because as you think about strategies of how to reach out to these customers, knowing who that audience is allows you the opportunity to know how to market to them. So, for example, if you were doing selling sneakers for kids, like tennis shoes for kids, are you going to go on Facebook? Maybe not. But would you go on TikTok and show off the shoes and maybe have younger kids dancing in them and twirling in them and doing things like that? Absolutely. But if, say, you were selling shoes that were more for an older generation, maybe TikTok wouldn't be where you're going to get that audience. Maybe Facebook then would be the place, or in Pinterest. So being able to identify who you're reaching out to, it gives you a greater opportunity to know how to spend your marketing dollars wisely. And it also helps you know how to communicate and how to drive your message of what you're doing and why it's important. And so also too, within your target audience, you may want to consider a broader audience. Like I had said with the laundromat, yes, you want to focus on the Yawalapaki community, but if there isn't a large enough community that's going, or if the community is not large enough in size, perhaps you need to reach out a little bit broader. Maybe it's the same age groups and maybe it's the same way you communicate, but you're going to a different city or a different town or different community to be able to broaden your reach. And so that could be your secondary target audience, is a different community that's within 15 minutes of where your company is. So then, after you've identified your target audience, the next thing is that you want to look at your revenue streams, your sales channels, and marketing. So again, once you know who your audience is, it helps you then be able to go to the proper sales channels and then be able to market and be able to know how better to market. So when we're thinking about revenue streams, again, these are places where you will make your money. And then it's like, okay, so where can I do it online? Am I going to drive around to different communities? Am I going to have a brick and mortar store? Those are all the things that you can think about from that perspective. And then the sales channels and marketing vehicles are the things that, again, will be able to connect you to your customers. So some of the revenue streams down here are basically, you have product sales, which we had talked about, online, mobile, wholesale, and in-store sales. You can do an affiliate income where you have a blog where you start the blog out and then it ends up becoming where other people want to utilize your blog, and then you can monetize that blog. You could also do social media posts with links and then utilize like other folks that are other companies and be able to tie into them. There's also something called an influencer. So influencers will find products that they like, and then they will be able to then push those products. So that sometimes comes as a cost, but there's a way for you to work perhaps with an influencer, and then you promote them and then they promote you. Then there's advertising income, where you can have your website and maybe somebody asks if they can put their products on your website and you charge them for that. You have ebook sales, where if you have a business where you want to, it's a training book or a cookbook, you could sell that way. Video income, I mean, there are a lot of, as you guys know, YouTube channel people that make tons of money by offering their services or their products through their businesses through YouTube. You can also offer webinars and online classes where you're coaching and teaching, and people want to register for that, and maybe you charge a fee for those. And then within that, there can be members only content. So if people become members, they pay a fee for that, but they get extra special content. They get more than what people that just subscribe get. So if you want, more of an in-depth information, or you want to provide more in-depth information to your target audience, then that gives you the ability to be able to make additional money. And then also franchising. Franchising is a way where you have a business and somebody else wants to replicate that business. I'm trying to think of like Subway, sandwiches. That's the one that I can come up with off the top of my head, but that they franchise. So then somebody pays you money to be able to have the name, and then to be able to open up their own store, and then they pay you a royalty because you help with the training and getting the store set up and helping them know what they need to do to get the business set up. But they then, pay you for those resources. So then going on and continuing with the part 4 of your business plan, then within the direct sales, we've talked about this quite a bit already, but the one we haven't really touched upon are sales representatives. For sales representatives, you could have people that are going out for you and you could do door to door, or have people selling online for you. There are lots of ways that you could add a sales rep within your business. But otherwise, we have, like I said, have touched upon the mobile point of sale and the brick and mortar and all. And then as we think about more about the income channels, I think that we already did that. I think I must have done a duplicate of that. I apologize. So then when we go into marketing and advertising, there is online marketing methods where, again, we talked about a blog or social media, videos, free ebooks. You can also do like where you do the search engine, where you put in money, where you're optimizing, where when people type in a keyword of your business, that your company would pop up over others. So that costs money to do, but there are ways of being able to be very effective with like search engine optimization is what they call it, SEOs. So as you're playing with things, you'll start realizing, this word, I really got people to click on to my website. This word didn't really do much of anything. And through trial and error, you can do it yourself. But a lot of companies, charge a lot of money for being able to do that and have that mastery. But also too, collecting emails. If you later on decide you want to do a loyalty program, you can collect people's email addresses and be able to have a way of, reaching your customers that way as well, getting their Facebook pages. There are a lot of different ways within these marketing methods that you can think about. And again, knowing who your target audience is will help you go into this and know there are certain things I don't need to do because this audience doesn't do this. It just helps you kind of like eliminate things and not, instead of feeling very overwhelmed that you have to do it all. And then just some traditional forms of advertising and public relations outlets. You still have radio and television and newspaper, magazines, direct mail, door hanger, flyer distribution. Say if you're, driving around Your car can even be something that advertises what you do. Also, there's the event and team sports. So if your community has a local baseball team, a grocer that I talked to recently, he would always support their local, baseball team, and they had his name on the back of their uniforms. So I mean, he's supporting them, but then he's also getting a lot of advertising during baseball games. Events, are there great ways of you being able to be out in the public and set up a table and talk to people and share, or just even walk around? I had learned I would go to conferences when I was selling products. And when you have your own table to talk to people, people tend not to want to talk to you. And the table, like, they think you're there, you're trying to sell them something. I found just being a participant and walking around and socializing, people were more open. For some reason, standing behind a table, I think it just sends the message that you are selling, and it doesn't, people are less apt, like, you're less approachable, I guess is the word. So I would circulate around, and instead of standing behind a table and trying to get people to do, hoping people will come to you. So then we're on to step 5 in terms of getting your business plan written. But you'll have structure and suppliers and operations, depending on what kind of business that you have. So when James had talked about this already, so I won't go through it, but there's your business structure about what kind of business are you going to be and what permits are required. Do you need certifications if you were, or any education, like if you're going to run a daycare? Are there things that you need in order to be able to open? And then the roles and responsibilities. Who's going to do what? And who's going to be paid what? What does all that look like? And then just, basically too, within those tasks, are there day-to-day operational plans that you need to have in place? Like, we open at, our doors open at 8, but people need to come in at 7 a.m. so we can get set up. Or, I have to go get gas in the morning, but my mobile sales truck, we're gonna end up, I have to get gas. I got to clean the car. I got to make it look good. That takes about an hour. And I want to be on the road by 9 o'clock every morning. Supply chain. If you're making something, if you're making jewelry or pottery or painting, or if you're purchasing products that you're turning into and making, like candy bars or making baked goods, knowing like your raw goods and what you're needing to purchase and what suppliers are and what the cost of those goods are, so that you can turn that into, okay, if I'm making a chocolate chip cookie, I need the chips, I need the vanilla, the flour, the sugar, the eggs. How much do each one of those ingredients cost for me to make a batch of cookies? And once I know all of that, how much is it per cookie? And how much should I sell that cookie for? That's where it all comes into play about, okay, how many employees do I need? How much are they going to cost? So maybe if you're just looking at your ingredient list, you think, oh, well, per cookie, it costs me 25 cents. But in reality, with all the other things you've got to think of, from utilities to having your license, to being able to pay if you have any employees, all of that goes into the mix and the fold, that you may realize, oh, I need to charge $1 per cookie instead. So then the next and final piece is that once you've done all of those other elements, you go into your financial forecasts, which is kind of what I just alluded to on that last slide, is that you need to determine what are your startup costs, what is your working capital that you're going to need, what are your ongoing costs, and then where do you get this, and where can you get this, your needs fulfilled from the source and the supplier. So here are just some business needs you may need or you may not need, depending on what service or product you are going to be having a business. There may be things in here that are not even included, that you may need to add. But here are just some thoughts initially for you to be able to think about. With the laundromat, I mean, we had, for example, they had received a grant, had the washers and dryers, but they needed, they are going to have to pay for water and electricity. They had to man it. They had to make sure they had supplies, cleaning supplies to clean out the washers and the dryers. They wanted to make additional revenue. So they were going to have a fluff and fold business where they could fold laundry for people. That was going to require additional manpower. They also thought about having, while you're sitting in the laundromat, you're going to need to have things to eat and to drink. And so that was included in the cost of goods that they would purchase and then they would sell. Then, they also thought about how to market. And one of the ways was that refer a friend. If you refer a friend, you get one wash for free. So they had to determine, well, how many people do you think would do that? And how much is a free load of laundry cost? And then how is it 10% of the community we think that would do that? The other was a loyalty program. You come 10 times and you get a free drink. You come, 20 times, you get a free snack, or you come 30 times and you get a free load to wash. So those are the things that they had to incorporate within their financial forecast to make sure that at the end of the day, they were going to be profitable. And so here is, again, like just thinking about your product and your service, what you're going to sell it for, and what is your overall cost, and how much money at the end of the day will you make. And then here is the example that we use for the laundromat and what money we thought that they'd be able to bring in. So this was a 5-year financial projection. What we showed you in the previous 2 slides, it's more just getting yourself thinking about the business and starting to work on it. But as you start getting more and more information, as James had said, a lot of businesses, if you can hit the 5-year mark and you're being successful, chances are this business is going to continue to grow and bloom. And so my recommendation, while it's not within that business plan, is to think about your 5-year goals, 5-year projections, where you think you can be, and be realistic about it. But it's okay, again, to have that dream and that vision of where you think you can be. And then realistically, is this business going to survive and thrive? And so you can see here with the self-wash and the fluff and fold and the vending, that in year 1, they weren't turning much profit at the end of the day. So because their total revenue was $47,000 and their cost of goods were $44,000, and their net income was about $2,500. But because they got and received the washers and dryers with a grant, I mean, this is all, good money for them, and then they can turn it back and put it back in their business. But then you can see in year 2 and year 3, they're around the same. And then in year 4 and year 5, they're around the same. They are the same, but it's just kind of giving yourself a projection, knowing that the growth will come, but growth can sometimes be slow and it takes time. So these were very conservative estimates for how we thought that the business would grow. So these are other things to consider when you're putting your business plan together. It depends on how complicated your business is, how in depth you want to go. But the recommendations were those 6 areas. But if you're like, I need to do more, or I want to do more, I need to go to a bank, and I want to show them a sound business plan so I can get the loan that I need, or whatever the case may be, you may want to do a few more things. And that is having an executive summary, which includes a background and a business overview, your product offering, your customer focus, your management team, your success factors. Again, what are you offering that has a competitive advantage over your competition? And then your financial highlights. And usually the executive summary is a couple pages. It's just a summary of your overall business plan. Then you may want to think about, if you're not a sole proprietorship, who your management team is, and then, their roles and responsibilities and what their background is, and what is their relevance and how they're going to add to your business. Then the next is a market analysis, where you want to maybe do a little bit more in depth of the total market potential that you have and your consumer demographics, and then purchasing trends and behaviors. So you want to see, like, for example, there wasn't a lot of information on Navajo Nation about laundromats, but I was able to do research on, what are laundromats, are they successful anymore? And I realized, and how big is that business as an industry? Is it growing? What are the projections for that? And we saw that it was like a multi-billion-dollar business, and that it was growing. It wasn't slowing down. And granted, while the national information may not be as beneficial and useful on Navajo Nation, it still kind of could be a little bit of a guide for you to be like, yeah, I might be on to something. And again, that analysis of the total market potential is kind of what we did in the previous slide, of just seeing what percentage of people do we think are going to come and shop. How often are they going to come? How much laundry do they have? And we only have 8 washers and dryers. So how many times can we have people coming and doing laundry a day? Like, all of that kind of stuff helps you in the end see whether or not this business, like you've done your due diligence to make sure that there is a market for your business. And then I talked some too about the industry analysis and looking at the latest trends, finding other successful concepts, maybe within Navajo Nation. Of the 110 chapters, maybe there's a chapter that's far enough away, but you've seen their success and you can allude to that and why you think your business would be successful. We talked about earlier having a staffing plan in part 5 of your business plan, but I wanted to say that you may want to think about being a little bit more in depth in that section. So you may want to have more of a staffing plan with local employment, job training and workforce development, how you're going to go about that, what you need for that. As James had said, that if you are you going to hire all Navajo employees? And if you are, then you're going to have tax benefits from that. Just thinking about and going more in depth in that section. So the number of employees, their job descriptions, maybe the pay, the benefits, all of that. And then last is, are there any, hurdles you're going to have to jump through? Are there some things that could be risk factors? One of the risk factors of the laundromat was that they didn't have a big area to be able to dump all the water from their washing machines. Where was that water going to go? Would it limit the amount of customers they could have in a day? We knew the electricity, they weren't going to have an issue with that. But the water was going to be something that could really be a detrimental piece to their project being able to move forward. So you want to really think about those things too, and that it's okay to put those in your plan, because in doing so, it has shown, if you need to go for a loan, it has shown that you have thought about those risks and how you are going to mitigate those, or that you've considered them and that you don't really think they are going to be potential issues, but I have really given it thought that it might be. And then this is how I would go about fixing that or resolving it. Or you can't, but the odds of it happening are, negligible. Hopefully I didn't go through that too fast, but do you guys have any questions? I appreciate so much your listening, and open to anything that you would like to ask.
This is Andrea. Hello.
Hello.
I just I know that this meeting is recorded and I got pulled into another meeting.
Yes.
Is there any way I can get the recording sent to me?
Yes, we will work on that. I'm hoping the whole thing got recorded. I thought I had pushed pause, but then when I went in to look and it said pause recording, or stop recording. So I'm hoping the whole thing did. We will be performing and doing 2 more of these sessions. So if something happened, we can also send you another presentation that we're doing, on Thursday, should this one have not been completely captured.
And then, thank you. James, I have a question for you in regards to getting, and right now I'm going to be speaking as the chapter manager and not an entrepreneur. Acquiring land, I know you had mentioned that, we do require permittees to approve of using the land because they are grazing. Have you come across any chapters or any businesses that work with chapters that use the eminent domain clause in the LGA in Title 26?
Not necessarily. I've only heard of one chapter. It was a chapter in New Mexico that used the eminent domain clause. I know the chapters that I've worked for, we've never used it, only because the political pushback that would result in using that part of Title 26. It is an option, but a lot of times the Navajo Nation will view use of it not only by statute but through common law. So that principle always comes into play, and they're always going to want to try to meet with both parties and try to figure out something that works for both groups. What I have seen, aside from eminent domain, is chapters working with those permittees that initially do not want any sort of development in the area, but they offer them compensation for the vegetation loss and any sort of surface water loss that would be excluded from their commonly used grazing area. I've seen that done before, and it tends to work more often. Sometimes the permittees are still stuck in their ways about not allowing the area. One thing that I've seen some chapters do also is designate an area within their chapter for commercial use and have it withdrawn and then use that parcel of land as an area for the building of smaller, kind of like a flea market area, a small vendor village. I know they've done that up in Gouldings, oh not Gouldings, yeah, Gouldings, Ojeto chapter. So if you go towards Monument Valley, right before you turn to the right to go to the park, there's that little area they call the Welcome Center. They built these buildings. They look like garages, and vendors set up in there. So that was one way. I believe they used Utah Navajo Trust money and then some of their own funds to do that. But they basically withdrew the area and then used it to create several spots where businesses can rent those garages. So I've seen them do that. And then also Kayenta Township is one that withdrew a huge area and basically got all the surveys done. And basically they just kind of like parceled the area out and for home sites. And then business site leases are still under the tribe. But when it comes to land use, it goes back to the treaty days. The intent of the designation of a reservation for the Navajos was initially so that they can become farmers, so that they can raise livestock. If you look at the treaty terms, those were given to the Navajos, and so as the Navajo Nation, it was just a rectangular shape by treaty, by executive order, and other orders of Congress. Portions of the reservation were added on to support agriculture. So when you really talk about business development on the Navajo Nation today, they'll always choose agricultural practices over any sort of commercial development. That's the sad truth of that the entrepreneurs often encounter. But there are ways to kind of address it. One is to first initially sit down with those land users, try to work out a deal, and then try to also set up some sort of escrow account for them. So like, let's say you set up a parcel of land for commercial use, you set up a flea market, and on one corner, you set up some vendor areas like the way they did in Monument Valley or the Navajo shopping centers. If you can do that, get your tax code in place for your chapter under Title 26, start collecting taxes, but earmark a portion of tax revenues to give to that escrow account that would be given to those land users. And usually it's not a lot. I mean, smaller chapters, you get some tax revenues, and then you can, give like 2% of that 7% to the land users to compensate them for that loss of use of vegetation and surface water. That escrow account would pay for hay and water supplies and whatnot for those people. So I've seen creative ways of doing it like that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Was this helpful, Andrea and Dixon?
It is. I'm just sorry I missed out on your portion of the presentation, the one I really wanted to listen in on. So originally, just so I guess I should introduce myself. My name's Andrea. I'm the chapter manager here at Baudaway Gap, and we are a certified LGA chapter. But outside of that, so from high school to before I came back, this is my second time back at this chapter. I went to school for hospitality, for hotel and restaurant management. And I worked for about almost 8 years at a resort in Big Water, Utah, outside of Page, Arizona. You guys may be familiar with it, called Amangiri. So I was there for 8 years. I went from working in the laundry department and housekeeping to front desk reservations, and then moving to the engineering department. But I dabbled in a lot of things there. I helped with the cultural events. I helped with organizing tours and activities, and then helping the sales manager with weddings and birthday parties and things like that. And these are not just like simple stuff. These are like extravagant, bringing in people that to perform, names, these big performers that you see at the VMAs and stuff. And so
Yeah.
having that experience, and then, understanding how a lot of the people that would stay at this resort actually wanted to be involved with the Navajo community. They wanted to do the tours of Antelope Canyons, the Wave, fly out to Tower Butte, and just immerse themselves in the culture. But there wasn't a lot of information, to provide to these individuals at that resort level. So we would have to connect them to the actual tour companies. And because the tour companies are so busy, it's hard for them to get information. And then also working closely with travel agents. So going from that, myself and one of my colleagues from Amangiri, we decided that we would try to do start our own travel agency. So that's why I wanted to go through the business plan. We want to be and this idea came up when I was working at Lachi'i. I also worked at Lachi'i for a year as their manager. When Jonathan Nez came and signed 2 tour companies that finally got their business license from the Navajo Nation. He mentioned that one of the things that he would like to see, and this may be incorporated with his hotel that he hasn't seen, is there's no Navajo-owned travel agency. And so with that thought in mind, and with my experience, and then with my colleague, and who's also one of my friends, we decided to try to pursue doing an agency. And that's where this training comes in, and, trying to understand business plans and getting that organized. But it's twofold, because what I learned from here also I can translate to the chapter, to our community, because we're trying to do economic development. We're right on this strip, this highway that goes to Page, that goes to Lake Powell, that, we're right in the hub of the Grand Circle, and we connect right in there. But my chapter does not have any type of revenue, any type of tourism revenue. We have one little gas station that gets so packed, we're afraid it's going to cause an accident. We have vendors along the road, but, I want to be able to, and this is where Brian Cole is going to come in with me as well. And like you had mentioned, James, a vendor village. I want to be able to have vendor spots throughout my whole community that look nice, that look inviting, just like throughout the reservation, they're really run down, and they're just like put together with scraps, and we want to change that. So that's where this also comes in, so I can help my community as well. So that's why I was asking for the recording, and just to give you background on why I was attending. I want to be able to do this, and I want to be one of the first agencies that's Navajo owned and that focuses on the Navajo Nation itself and the surrounding areas. So yeah, thank you.
No, I
Thank
think
you.
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Andrea. Kristen, I think Andrea would be a good candidate for assisting with the business plan.
I would agree.
Yeah, Andrea, well, under the program, we're supposed to assist a few aspiring entrepreneurs develop their business plan. And I think you would be a good one to work with Kristen to do that. So maybe you can email me your contact information, or I think if you registered online, I would have it. And then I can get you in contact with Kristen, and then you guys can have a discussion about your idea. But it is a good idea. I like it. It's feasible, and it would be something that would touch not only the Antelope Canyon. I mean, you could get in contact with all these tour companies out here, and be arranging stuff for them and make a lot of money out of that.
Yeah, and
that's my goal, and and my goal is just to share the culture, because it is going to bring revenue to the Navajo Nation. But just learning from how people, from even these people that travel a lot, and again, my experience from Amangiri, and hearing, sometimes I get offended by some of the things they say, but I have to remember that they don't know the Navajo Nation, about living in teepees. Do we still, use wagons, or, is your hair real? Just the simple things. Is your hair real? Is it really that long? It's just mind-boggling how those questions come about. But I can't be offended, because I feel the same way about certain cultures as well, and growing up. So I want to be able to share the culture, but I want to do it respectfully. I do still have some contacts from Amangiri, from other travel agencies that are I think are good resources for me as well. And then with my friend who both of us want to do this, he's still in the hospitality industry. He does a lot of sales. We have a lot of experience with a couple of different programs that the hotels use, and then being able to understand how travel agencies work with those hotels, and just being able to just get that experience. We have a portion of that experience, I believe. I think again, I think this is as well a good opportunity. It's just getting that starting point. It's a bit hard, it's a bit harder for us because we still have the full-time jobs. And coming back to my community, you're telling, you're saying entrepreneurs need to take time for themselves. And working for a chapter, James, you probably know it's very hectic. It's
Yep.
I come to chapter meetings on weekends, myself and my AA. We stay here late trying to get things done, and after a while we're like, okay, we got to stick 8 to 5, and 8 to 5 will work for only a little while. Then we end up coming back and doing things. Like today, we have to pick up water in Tuba, and we're still working through lunch. So, but it is, and as far as this goes, you guys were talking about overhead, and for us, I don't really see a lot of overhead. I think all of it's just going to be like at home on computers, virtual, online. I think that's how we'll start. And I think our only overhead is just going to be payroll and computers, I think. And then, the fees for all those charges. Yeah, and a lot of marketing. And I don't have a lot of experience, but I do have experience as far as like sales and marketing. I think that's where my the other person I'm working with, he has a little bit more experience with that. I'm more of the accounting part. I can do payroll just because I have the experience from the chapter itself. Since we're certified, we do everything here locally. So that kind of helps me a little bit. So I do, with the assisting with the business plan, that would be amazing to get help with that. We've been just looking and just trying to figure out the best way to do that. But I think if we can get assistance from you, Kristen, I think that would really help us out a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I was thinking about is that there have been a ton of articles out recently about how people are sacrificing in areas of food and groceries so that they can travel and have experiences. And that has gone up. I thought it was like 9 or 10%. Like travel is off the hook because I think from COVID, people want to get out and they want to live life. They don't want to be tied to their desk 24/7. So I really do think that you have a wonderful opportunity. Actually, my husband's best friend, I might want to connect you with him because he has a travel agency and they run tours. And so he goes around and does tours across the country and leads groups. And then he connects with other places. So if there is something that you have created, and that they can come and participate in an experience on Navajo Nation, I think that would be a really wonderful opportunity that I don't think he has right now. So that might be a link that I have for you, or at least have a conversation with him, and you never know where it can go to.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Yeah, and we even have I even work with a chef out of Kanab who usually contacts my family to help when he does Navajo taco dinners. So, you know, that's our one connection right there, because he has nobody else to contact. And he was, you know, he owns 2 restaurants going on his 3rd that's going to be built this coming year. So we, you know, as a family, we go out there and help him. Usually it's my mom and my siblings because I work too much. But, you know, even with that, even from the Navajo Nation side, I want to be able to, you know, send people, because a lot of, you know, for me, it's always last minute, and I have to, you know, I have to try to find the best deals. But if we can offer that too to the Navajo people, you know, I think that would be good, because a lot of people want to travel as well from here, you know, and, you know, why can't I help them, you know, make plans to go to Disneyland or something, you know?
Yeah.
So we see both sides as well. And I think it would be good to get, you know, as much information as we can and get as many contacts as we can, and, you know, just network, and we can all work together, because that's what we did. Is, you know, there's a company that's called EXP Journeys that works with multiple travel agencies, but they're the main core, the top tier, and then they go down from there and organize with other travel agencies and hotels. And so I've seen how they've worked. I met with the owner. And so, you know, I wanted to also go to him and see, you know, what he's experienced and what he's done. So, you know, I just want to start something and then just go from there and see, you know, see what happens. Because I feel like it is needed on the reservation. Is something that the reservation could have. And, you know, further down, I do, you know, along the way, it'd be nice to have little offices in the areas where there's a lot of traveling done too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it does sound like it's a great idea. And like you said, it's not going to cost a lot to get it going. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys' input, and I look forward to working with you guys with developing our business plan.
I do too.
All right. If there's no other questions, pretty much we're done. We'll be holding another 2 sessions Thursday, right? Thursday morning and Thursday evening.
Yes.
So tell your friends about it, and tell them to check out our website. It's www.nahata.org, and you can get more information there. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.